Got to change it, but it's all okay. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the LJL Officially Unofficial Cast. I am Alex, otherwise known as Lexi. I go by MaskedSwan on the internet. As you can see, we've had a tuck up. We've had a lift face.
This is a glow up, man. This is a glow up.
You look good, man.
We look good right now. We look good. I am, of course, joined by the illustrious Initia1ise.
Thank you very much. Moving on. Yeah, hi. I'm Initia1ise. It's good to be here again, talking about some playoffs.
And the fox girl himself, Nymaera.
Oh yeah.
Oh my days.
Ooh.
Look at it.
Oh, it's true. Oh, it's true. Oh, it's true. Hello.
The worst thing is I'm now like living vicariously as a fox girl, both in League as Ari and in our D&D campaign where I'm effectively just a fox girl as well. It's great.
It's fully committed to the role. Like I appreciate it.
Yeah. This is the devolution of mankind. We end up in sort of like self-isolation, and this is what happens. He ends up happening.
I mean, this has been a process for like a while. This didn't just happen overnight. You didn't just...
No, but the final snap was here. This is like the shining moment. Like, here's Nymaera, and instead of like an axe coming through the door, it's just like fluffy tails. It's like, oh no!
Have you seen my main champion? Have you seen my main champion?
At some point, he's gonna become what was it? So there was that Simpsons prediction of Patty and Selma, and I think it was like Selma got like the tail. Like she actually had like a foxtail or some random thing. It's like
in one
it's
of the
like
future episodes.
Oh yeah, it's like Simpsons have predicted everything. Because if you literally have done over 500 and something episodes, you can basically
if you throw enough shit at the wall, some of it sticks. Yes.
Yeah, and some of it's also going to come true. It's like, okay, sure. Anyway, hello. We are the LJL Officially Unofficial Podcast.
Back on track.
Somewhat back on track. We three lovely gentlemen, we cover the LJL over in Japan, because that's what it stands for. Brain's working today, I promise. We are currently the only English-speaking coverage of the LJL. That's what I meant to say. And so far has been so good. We've just finished our regular spring split. We do all of this off our own back, so if you are interested in supporting us, we do have a Discord. There's links and everything else down below. Please, as always, as I say...
We're not even asking you for money yet.
No, not yet.
No.
Not yet. Maybe soon.
That'll be when the Ari cosplays come out.
Yeah, episode 100 is...
100. Episode 100. That's it.
That's right.
Oh, that's gonna be a wild ride. Need to figure out my cosplay for that. No, I've got loads of weeks to figure that out. So I've got approximately...
Armor of the 5th Age Tarek. Obviously.
I've
got to become hella buff, but I've got time to become hella buff. So yeah, I mean, it's going to be over 2.5 years till we get there. So
yeah, maybe.
I got time. We all got time to not have to worry about that. Anyway, this is the LJL Officially Unofficial Podcast, and I do promise you we do talk about League of Legends and everything in regards to the LJL sometimes, unless we get vaguely off topic. This is a follow-up podcast episode 7. Congratulations, gentlemen. We've made it to episode 7.
It's a pleasure.
This podcast, again, is time-sensitive, so we are going to acknowledge, obviously, Corona is still very much hitting us. If anything, in the UK now, it is starting to be taken somewhat more seriously.
Yes.
Took us a bit too long, in my eyes, but...
Especially as all three of us are in London, so, you know, if anywhere's going to get hit by it, it's going to be the big city, so...
yeah.
Yep, but... Hey-ho, we're still here, and I mean, self-isolation means, well, I mean, it doesn't really affect us
anyway.
At all, yeah. I think Sam's the one that goes out the most out of all of us, and...
So he's going to bring it to me, which is just great.
Yeah.
Love it.
Perfect, and when I eventually meet you for D&D, when I leave the flat for that once every 2 weeks, that's when I get it.
Yeah.
No protection. But hey-ho, it is what it is. I do it because I love you both, and I mean, it'd be weird not to see you in person every few weeks, or... Yeah.
Oh, people are still real. Wow.
Yeah, I'd be like, oh my god,
you don't have a health bar and mana. Where's your level symbol?
Oh god, no, for me it's
Has he gone resourceless?
Oh god. But yes, so in this podcast episode, we're going to be giving a very quick roundup of the standings and kind of thoughts on the standings and how they really came out at the end. Obviously, you can listen to our really in-depth thoughts of our previous episode, episode 6, where we really cover everything around that. But we're going to give a quick roundup for those who potentially have been unable to listen to the episode before they go back and listen to everything else, because they should, because you should listen to everything and you should watch all our videos, because only us, only LJL. Sorry, I got
subscribe to our channel.
I got a little bit yandere in that one. Then we're going to start doing our power rankings. This is where we're going to be ranking our players based on the LJL 2020 regular split. This is not where we're putting them historically, and this is not what we're putting them also for playoffs. This is our perspective of the top players in their roles for the spring split. Now, if we haven't done that and we've all got on different criteria, it sounds like Initia1ise is on the same. If Nymaera's done different criteria, fuck it, we'll figure it out live.
Yeah, we'll
figure it out.
We'll say it before we do our list what we thought our criteria were, because power ranking is such an esoteric thing.
Oh,
people do all the weird things, and we're here to have a good discussion about it. And differences do breed good discussion as well. If we came up with the same list, we'd be sat here and get through it very quickly and be very boring.
Well, it'll be interesting. I'm almost hoping that we do, because then I'll be like,
and I'm like, especially because it's coming into playoffs as well. It'll be good to sort of have a bit of perspective on who we think is strong players going into it.
Yeah, and it allows us to really determine who's overperformed and underperformed by our own metrics as well. It kind of allows us to hold ourselves accountable a bit.
It does. We will then be going on to our playoff predictions, both overall for the whole LJL playoff season, I guess it is, as well as also round 1, match 1 and match 2 predictions, far more in-depth chat. So one's going to be kind of blasé, I think this is going to happen, we're going to give our thoughts and then an overview bracket conversation, and then we're going to have a more in-depth chat based on our perspectives with what's going to be happening in the matches that we know that's going to happen for round 1. Reason we're not going to do much about round 2, even though we know it's going to happen, is because there's a week till that happens, and we got another podcast episode by that point. So keep the content. And then we're going to probably wrap up expectations for playoffs, hype, and everything else. And then we will probably plug a few other things at the end, say closing thoughts, and that will mostly be it. Have either of you got any other thoughts that I might have missed there?
That's pretty good for me. That's pretty spot on.
We're going to get it through a lot of different conversations when we go between like our round 1 player predictions and then the like our power rankings too, within their own roles, and then a top 10 as well. We've got like there's a lot of stuff to talk about. I'm sure we can think of some stuff at the end if we do feel like sticking around for a bit longer as well.
Yeah, and I'll vaguely keep us on a time management thing. I won't let us go on.
You'll certainly try.
Forever. I'll try. Oh, I definitely will give it a jolly good go. Whether it's effective or not is a totally different kettle of fish. So let's first do a very quick roundup of the standings and just kind of the basic overview of that. So, in 8th place, and we will not be seeing them in playoffs, is Fukuoka SoftBank Hawks Gaming.
Single tier.
In 7th place, who fought in the tie-off match, or tiebreaker match, is Burning Core with 5 wins and 9 losses. In 6th place, making playoffs and winning that tiebreaker match, is Crest Gaming Act, again with 5 wins and 9 losses with a 4-loss streak, which is kind of impressive. Axis in 5th place with 6 wins and 8 losses. Rascal Jester in 4th place with 7 wins and 7 losses. V3 in 3rd place with 8 wins and 6 losses. Sengoku Gaming in 2nd place with 9 wins and 5 losses. And in 1st place, we have Detonation Focus Me with 12 wins and 2 losses. Now, obviously, 2 of the teams, as I've said, 7th and 8th, Burning Core and the Hawks, did not make it. At least we got to see Burning Core fight for their end.
Yeah. I've said it before, I think Burning Core are the only team, like out of the Hawks and Burning Core, I think Burning Core have a legitimate reason to feel frustrated they're not in playoffs. There were 2 or 3 games earlier on in the split which they kind of threw rather than actually just losing them straight out. And that's going to haunt them because it means they're not in playoffs right now.
Yeah. That being said, I mean, CGA had a similar thing, right? They threw a couple of games, I think it's fair to say. They threw the one versus Axis with that Baron steal, and then against
And Rascal Jester.
they had the horrible late game fight. So both, I think, and Axis had a couple towards the start of the split as well, actually, where they were in a commanding position and they didn't really capitalize on it. I think actually it's pretty fair to say that the teams at the top of the table are the teams which have managed to throw the least, because everyone's managed to find advantages at some point.
I would definitely agree with that. I think
Something
DFM
to that.
and
Haven't thought about that too
Sengoku
deeply.
definitely played the best out of everybody by a country mile.
Yeah, Sengoku were the throw team, but they managed to sort that out by the second half of the split.
Yeah, they did.
They managed to get okay with that.
Yeah, by week 3, week 4, they had definitely started to figure it a lot out, and they weren't doing very silly things. And then eventually they beat DFM, so
They did okay.
clearly something's working. We already said the Hawks were not. None of us are really too surprised now with how the last few weeks went. Obviously, going into this, we all had high expectations. Any brief thoughts on what the Hawks really did wrong from when we were watching the games to just... I felt like the flame just kind of went out for the team.
I mean, they finished on a 0-6 streak, right? They lost 6 in a row. I think that... Well, it's kind of strange because it's not like they were particularly drafting any differently. They were still picking stuff like Honey was playing Misfortune for the entirety of the split. Ramone was going towards like LeBlanc and Rumble for the entirety of the split. Tussle was playing his champions. I think they weren't finding the leads they were used to in their laning phase, particularly from mid lane. Dasher tried to do some solo lane shenanigans on stuff like Aurelia, but he was never really the primary carry in the first place. I think Honey and Pooh struggled to play aggressively, and I think that really started to bite them eventually, and it meant that Ramone, when he wasn't like 100% turned on, meant that he just, him and Tussle couldn't control the map, really.
Yeah, and I do think there was a bit of a disconnect between members when it came to map awareness, because we saw a lot of people get caught out of position by gangs and stuff they probably shouldn't have been. So I think particularly Dasher loved to play things like we saw Camille from him, we saw Aurelia from him. Do we see a Lucian game from him too? I want to say.
We saw one, yeah.
Yeah, and mechanically, he looked pretty fine in a 1v1. He was winning, getting solo kills versus Zebby and stuff, right? That's good going.
I mean, this is a team at week 4. They were 4-4, and then they went on the
second place.
They were tied for second. And how this came out, if they got one more win, they would have been that tiebreaker. Across 3 weeks, 1 win.
Yeah.
A team that's 4-4, tied for second, you expect them to be able to do.
That's huge. It's so huge.
Frankly, not doing it almost means there's so much that we just weren't seeing. Things of note, our top 3 teams were also the teams that had the big streaks. V3 ending just on a streak, not even getting to see how long it goes on for. DFM obviously going 9-0.
9-0.
Was it 9? Yeah, it was 9.
It was 9 before Sengoku.
And then 11? I can't remember. It was a lot.
It was a lot.
Yeah, and Sengoku having, I believe, a 6-win streak before losing their one as well, because they were down to something like 4, and they were 2-4 at one point, and then they ran it up. I
think both V3 and Sengoku had a 5-win streak.
Okay.
I believe that's how it was.
And then obviously Rascal Jester, as I said in the previous podcast episode, put a pin in here. Just put a little pin in here. And they're a team that's definitely online, looking scary in playoffs. Axis, obviously the Cinderella story of all of us. The team that, they went 0-4 and then 1 out. Hawks, what's your excuse? I mean, that's a sad thing to say.
I think that we saw the coaching staff of Axis really, really perform well this split, and I think the Hawks, maybe that was their problem, some backroom stuff. The thing is, it's so hard to judge it.
And the other thing that the Hawks
had,
and the other thing that Hawks also had, which has been said a few times on our Discord, links are in the show notes if you're interested in joining. A lot of people on our Discord did mention that obviously the fact of this was a team that was thrown together in basically under a month.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, it was.
Expecting anything more than last place, even with the caliber of players, is that a little bit too much to ask?
Dasher had a role swap. The mid jungle had played together, but not for a while.
Not a while.
We're talking about in a scale of years, not in terms of months or weeks. Honey, professional debut, and Pooh kind of thrown together.
His professional debut. He had played in the Challenger circuit, but this was his professional.
Top flight debut. So a lot of players which are kind of chucked together, but then they came off to this really good start. I think that I don't know. It's so hard to tell because
But we didn't see much improvement from them as a problem.
and
Like
that's
other
why-
teams really stepped up, particularly in their macro.
and
The
that's why I
Hawks
think it's
macro was forever a weakness.
And that's why I think maybe you start have to questioning the. I don't think you in isolation can blame the backroom staff because it's always going to be a relationship between the players and the backroom staff and how they work together and certain duos work together and whatever, right? But we saw people like Sengoku, they really cleaned up their macro. DFM were stellar all the way through. I think Axes had some very interesting picks that they've continued to pull out, which have proved to be very strong picks.
Jesters creative problem solving.
Yeah, Jesters have probably the highest unique champion picks of any team. They managed to win on very many of them. V3 have some real star power, and they managed to play around them. That's continuing to bring out new picks. And then, of course, Arya from CGA, he has everything under the sun. That's less of a backroom thing, that's just a star power player. But I think particularly with these guys, you have some very talented people. We know that. It just wasn't capitalized on, particularly into the mid and late split.
I like it. I think you rounded that off really nicely, Nymaera, actually. I like that. Commiserations to Burning Core. You did give it your all, I will be honest. Problem is, a CGA that apparently gets to prep seems a little bit scary. So, it's going to be interesting to see how they go. But we'll go into all that playoff stuff a little bit later.
I'm chomping at the bit for that stuff. There's a lot of stuff I want to say.
I hope you lads have looked at the document for the power rankings. I don't think either of
have.
You have? You have? You've seen how I would like you to do this? Very good, then.
See.
Let us individually first explain how we each did our power rankings. I'll go first while you two idiots try and find the document and actually do what I asked you to do earlier. It's fine. It's fine. That's what I do. I control the flow. That's why I do this. That's why I'm host.
This is the little section of the podcast document, isn't it? Or is there a separate one?
There's literally one where it says power rankings. It shouldn't be too hard. I put a little note in how I wanted things to go, and maybe you guys just haven't paid attention. It's fine. So, for my criteria when I was doing my power rankings, I've done it a little bit differently to the other two. We did that part off stream. I've only done my top 3 players in individual roles, as well as also my top 10, which is what they've also done. Now, in what the other two have done, not 100% sure. My power rankings were based on only their spring split 2020 performances. These are kind of where I've put players in my head. This is my expectations of the players moving forward somewhat to a degree, but like obviously things can change. Power rankings can go different. We'll have to find out. But who really knows? Neither of your cursors went anywhere near where I wanted them to go. So, I mean, that's always good. It's in the podcast episode document.
It is this bit.
It is. Okay, now I can see your cursor.
I thought it was a separate document, and I was like, it was.
Okay. Sam, now that you found it, you say your criteria for how you did your power rankings.
So I have done the way I sort of did it is I basically have done of the playoff team. I have ranked all of the players in their respective sort of 1 through 6. And then from that, I have given myself a top 10 of the players in playoffs who, of their current performance and where I cut, and kind of also where I think they'll become these playoff matches coming up.
Yeah. Okay.
And that was partly of consistency. That was partly of how lots of other stuff.
Cool.
Yeah. So my criteria is largely off of current form in the last couple of weeks, really particularly, and how important they are to their teams if they really want to succeed in playoffs. It's not necessarily them in isolation. It has to be their impact on the team as well. So it's more kind of like so there are certain players who, like, even though they are consistently very good, perhaps because they aren't such a linchpin to their team, might not feature so much on my list. This is more like, if a player has star power, you are more likely to make it into my top 10. I've done a ranking of every player in playoffs in terms of their role, so it'll be a top 6 for each role, and then a top 10 of any player. So of any role.
Okay, well, as I've only done top 3, these two should be able to do this somewhat competently on their own without too much direction. So, let's see how this goes. Initia1ise, take this all away.
All right, so for my top lane, I have in number 6, I had Cog from Rascal Jester. For number 5, I had CGA's Nap. Number 4 was Axis Union. 3 is V3's Paz. Number 2 was Sengoku Gaming's Apperman. And then way clearly in top is Detonation Focus Me Zebby.
Okay, so for my top lanes, I had in 6th place Eunyan from Axis. In 5th place, I had Rascal Jester's Cog. In 4th place, I had Sengoku's Apperman. In 3rd place, I had CGA's Nap. In 2nd place, I had V3's Paz. And in top lane, of course, it's Ebby.
Huh.
Okay, so I think
I was very different.
Glad to hear it.
Yeah. I went so in the top lane, my 3rd top laner was Eunyan.
Okay.
My 2nd place player was Apperman, and of course it was Ebby in 1st place, as if there was ever any doubt.
Yeah.
Okay, so I guess our notable. So obviously, Ebby is at first. That one's not in contention.
Not hard.
So Apperman and Eunyan, I have rated significantly lower than you guys, I guess. So would you like me? How would you like to do this? Would you like to take the positive spin?
You go first. Go first and say whatever you want to say.
Okay, right. So obviously Ebby is in first. I'm gonna go deep dive a little bit into Paz actually.
Yeah, go for it.
Because Paz coming into this split, we expected him to be a bit of a monster. Yeah, you did particularly, but I had a hard time kind of balancing all my facts and figures about this. Actually, I'm trying to wonder if I would still change it even now, but I've written it down like this. So Paz has the lowest unique champion picks of any top laner. He's only played 4 things throughout the 12 picks, like the 14 matches of the LJL Spring Regular Split. We saw, however, in the last 2 weeks, between us, we gave him 3 Player of the Week votes in terms of his role. He was the best top laner for Lexi in week 6 and for Sam and I in week 7. He had some absolute monster games.
Still stick by it, but you guys going down the wrong week.
Well, regardless, we did have a lot of praise for him in the last couple of weeks.
Yes, we did.
I think that he has picked up a lot of champions which affect team fights particularly well. I think that's very important to his team when he is a big backline team fighter. He's doing that with confidence right now. He's also laning particularly well against a lot of different top laners. I'm trying to remember if he didn't have a game. Oh no, he did have a game versus Sengoku. He had it was the Akali game versus it was Apam. Was it the Akali game which he had and then he was playing the Aatrox, or was that
what information do you want, dear? Come on.
I'm trying to remember. There's one game where there's a load of solo kills. Anyway, we'll ignore that. But I think that Paz has team fought very effectively. I think he's laned very effectively.
It was V3 versus DFM where he went 10, 4, and 12.
Yeah, that was the Aatrox game.
Yes.
I was just trying to remember if there was one game with an Aatrox versus an Akali, and I was trying to remember if that was a V3 game. I don't think it was.
There was no Aatrox game versus Akali for Paz.
Not for Paz. No, I remembered it for someone else. Then okay. Yeah. And then I've rated Nat pretty highly as well. But do you guys want to jump into any other player?
So yeah, I have Paz in 3rd for similar reasons to you. I think at his best, this man is exceptional. And we've seen it before that this guy does have an ability to play team fights and the lane pretty well. We've also seen him default to some really weird choices, like the Grasp Aatrox to very low effect. We've seen him be very quiet through parts of this split. He seems to be coming online at the right time, and I have a lot of faith in him, but I also have, yet to see him pull out a lot of other champions at the minute. And I think the reason I have Apperman specifically rated higher than him is I think Apperman's role within Sengoku Gaming is a touch more versatile. I think we've seen a lot out of Apperman that's really impressed me. The Yorick games, the Gangplank games have been really, really good. And he seems to have a really good read on how to win a game from a difficult position in a way that I think Paz from behind this split has been a little bit quiet.
Okay, so my obvious thing that I've done that me and Nymaera heavily disagree on is Eunyan. So the reason I've put him in 3rd, and that's kind of the bronze place position. Everybody else below Eunyan is basically up to you, dear listener or viewer. You can pick my top 3. You can pick my bottom 3. That's fine by me. It was very close between Eunyan and Paz. I will be very honest. But the reason I went for him is Eunyan basically won Axis 2 games. He basically was allowed to win 2 games. There's the Camille backdoor that we know he did, and there's the other one where he basically split pushed, where he forced everybody to come up.
The Aatrox game was spectacular.
It really was.
And his Camille game was very good too.
So for that reason, that's why I've put him that high, because without, like the thing is, right, you could say, oh, all these other top laners would have done the exact same in his spot, but we don't know because they weren't in his
playing.
spot.
They weren't there.
They weren't on Axis, in the team and everything else. It led him to there, and frankly, my criteria has always been a little bit more biased, and I just like a player, so fuck you. But like Uyan just really kind of performed well, and like he was one of these players where if you asked me probably at week 5, he wouldn't be anywhere near it. But now he had a stellar 2 weeks, really has kind of woken up with the rest of Axis, and I'm kind of like, I like it.
Yeah,
I like it.
So, obviously I kind of put Afterman and Uyan a bit lower, and they are for different reasons why they put them lower, actually, because I think I do want to just put some back into that. So it's more like concerns, right? I think that obviously both these players deserve to make playoffs. They're very good players in their own right, and they have their upsides. My worry is that Afterman has the lowest KDA of all top laners. I think he has the lowest KDA in the league. This guy also has a pretty low kill share.
Oh,
as well.
I'm not sure. Grendel had a really poor.
Oh, Grendel was pretty low.
And also I know Proud had a really mixed one as well.
Anyway,
some of the supports have it for obvious reasons.
He's got he often is the person who doesn't attend the team fights as stringently as a lot of the other top laners.
Apperman actually has the lowest KDA.
And a lot of those are isolated deaths, as we've said. He has had a lot of split push games. He hasn't
Grendel in
clearly
second.
been winning.
I'm right.
Yeah, woo. I think that Afterman can sometimes fall behind very heavily and then not really know what to do with it. I think we saw that versus was that Rascal Jester when that happened? I'm trying to remember if it was Afterman versus that. He had that Gnar game where he just got kept soloed by Kennen all the time.
Oh yeah, no, that was
Yes, he did.
And that just puts a little. That's kind of like
Jester. It's when the Kokok went 505.
Yeah, and then I was like, I just put a pin in that, and I thought, what happens when it comes to a really tense playoff match and you get stuck in a shit matchup? What happens if this guy doesn't win the 1v1? He doesn't tend to attend the team fights as well as other teams. He can fall a little bit behind to some kind of pressure in a way that Paz has done a little bit more gracefully, and I think Nap has done that very well on the whole. He has been the weak side player, but even then I think Nap had a really good dominant game versus Ray Farkey of all champions in their tiebreaker match as well. So Nap impressed me in the last couple of weeks, he impressed me in the tiebreaker, and CGA, I have a bit of this weird head narrative going on, which I'll go into when we kind of get to the team talks later, but I think that Nap's going to perform pretty well come playoffs.
Yeah. I can see that argument. I just think that potentially some of Apperman's really bad. Like, a lot of Apperman's have come from bad games as well. So I think there's something to that. And I also think that
if he has a bad game, he's just in the pit, man.
Yeah, but I sometimes think that's often when Sengoku Gaming are having a bad game in general, and he's kind of trying to be the pressure valve to at least get something going, because otherwise they've got not a lot going on at all. And I think I have a certain amount of credit given to that. Whereas, say for me, I've got Nap and Cog a little bit lower down, mainly because I really don't rate their versatility, and I think that's a big thing for top lane. And I think Nap in particular, we've seen particularly his Cho'Gath, for example, awesome. But I do think like he's not often the reason you win a game, and he can often just be he's a role player at heart, and I've yet to see him step up and carry that off. And there was the game on the Kennen which was great, and that gave some faith for me.
My little inkling is that with
Did you guys know that Paz has the smallest champion pool in the whole league?
Yes.
Really?
I don't know. It's 4 champions.
Those 4 champions that he just keeps getting, and 2 of them are on and set.
Both of which should
banned heavily or picked heavily.
Yes. And they're also getting nerfed on this patch, I believe. I think playoffs is played on patch 10.5.
We believe so.
And
we'll know come match 1.
And the other side of that is that also Sunfire and Hydra are getting buffed, and those are both really big Shen buffs. So I think Nap might end up pulling out Shen. And I think that can work really well when you play around such heavy carries. That
he can also just keep playing Cho'Gath.
Just keep playing Cho'Gath. Absolutely can.
Nymaera, would you be willing to take us over to our next role if you'd be so kind?
Absolutely can. Okay, right. So this would be the jungle. So in 6th place, I have Yoshi from CGA. I think he had a good tiebreaker again, but he's still down in 6th for me. Steel is 5th.
Ooh.
In 4th is Blank. In 3rd is Hatchametcha. In 2nd is Hoglet. And in 1st, Praise be Boogie.
Ooh, okay, initially.
Yeah,
right.
you
That's
suck that
spicy.
lemon. You suck that lemon.
That's spicy, alright. It's a bit okay. So for me, I'll join you in the 6th place, of course. I think that's your better performance over the last couple of weeks, but still I think is the least good jungler. I think we've got a lot of good junglers in the league, and Yoshi's kind of
I would
not
agree with that
much.
statement.
In 5th, I've got
We love you, but yeah.
In 5th, we've got Hachimecha. I've got Hachimecha, and actually, it's really tight in this point. I think the jungle in general is quite a tight role, but I've got Hachimecha. Had a really good last week, but I think he's been a bit quiet in the split overall. He's not been bad, but he's not been stellar outside of the last week for me. 4 is Hoglet, who I think has been very good. 3rd is Steel, who I think has been consistently brilliant across the split outside of the last... he's had like 1 or 2 games at the end of it where I've been a bit like, that wasn't great, but I often think that was more of bad level 1s that have been read by the opposing team over necessarily massive structural issues from him. In 2, I've got Blank, who, when Sengoku Gaming started their win streak, it's largely because Blank turned up, ran over DFM of all people, handed over their first win, has looked very, very good consistently for over half a split on a number of champions in the early game. And then Boogie up in 1st, who I think has been just amazing.
Okay, do you want to take us through your top 3 then?
So Hoglet was 3rd, Steel was 2nd, and Boogie was obviously 1st.
All right, okay, I got to defend myself here a bit.
So this...
I think you've over-indexed into this last the losses they've had. I think.
So so my worry
Steel's
is
in 5th for you.
I had him in 5th. There are a couple of reasons for this. I think that he has not impacted the early game very well in the last couple of weeks, if I'm honest. I think that...
But he
I also think
basically won them games in the first 4 weeks as well.
But this is not the first 4 weeks. We are now many weeks later. This is coming into playoffs. We are the tension.
Yeah, this is DFM's like comfort zone now.
In some ways it will be, but there are a lot of new faces, a lot of new lookouts. It's the first time playoffs has been in this format. He will have to play in multiple different things.
Yeah, that's true.
I think that also one of the other things is that, particularly from a jungle standpoint, if you are at the top of the league, people catch up to you. People realize what you are doing. You don't know how to improve on the formula until people show it can be broken. They took 2 losses, sure, but I don't know that's enough for them to really prep something crazy new in preparation for whatever these teams are cooking up. Whereas the other teams have a lot of points to work with to kind of say, okay, this is what Steel does on his first clear. And I think that against the likes, I think that Hachimecha had a really good last week. He had those 2 Rek'Sai games.
I mean, he was MVP.
Yeah, in the last week, I believe. Yeah.
Yeah.
Blank, I think, is still a little bit coin flippy at times. But for me, obviously then the big one for me is then Hoglet in at 2nd. I think that Hoglet has been arguably the best mid 2v2 jungler of the league, partly because Boogie has to play with Ace, and Ace is a little bit shaky at times. But I think Hoglet had a really, really good last 2-3 weeks.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think Hoglet's really stepped up. I think he's been very good. For me, I think that Steel had 2 questionable games, but I think he's had significantly more very, very good games. I think one of the ones that really impressed me was when he was playing the Olaf with the Taric and played some very smooth engages on that champion. And that in particular was that was a nice level of coordination and team play from him that was very impressive to me. So he's up in 3rd. I've dropped him down a little bit because I do think that Boogie and Blank have actually been a level up over the last few weeks.
Blank has been playing some swagger recently.
Yeah, because I mean so when Sengoku Gaming were looking bad, it was, if you remember, there was that 2-0 week in week 4 that they had, where we were like, wait, Sengoku Gaming went 2-0, and that was where Yutorimi actually dragged the sort of the resisting members of Sengoku Gaming across the finish line. That was that horrific game versus V3, all that kind of jazz.
Yeah.
The next week, Blank turned up and he got 4 kills early against DFM. Like, literally went to every lane, got a double kill bot lane, kill in the mid lane, kill in the top lane. Like, it was amazing stuff. And he's done that pretty consistently since then. And he's found himself really good early pathing, very good KDA where he's not dying randomly, which I sometimes think for Boogie has done a little bit in the mid games. Like, he's team fought really well, but he's played very close to the edge in a way I think Blank has been.
That's just the Boogie style, though.
Yeah, exactly. And there's a reason I've still got Boogie first. But I think that Blank has been very, very good lately, and he's been on a real hot streak in a way we know he can do. And he just seems to be in the right place at the right time with some very clutch counter ganks as well. And again, when they did beat DFM, that was partly just off Blank out jungling Steel that one time. Boogie, I don't think we need to go over too much. I think he
won our MVP in jungle as well as MVP overall. Like,
he did some stuff, man.
Anyone who can get a 21 KDA on Jungle Echo and go 8-0-1 and Lee Sin and just, it's one thing to eye test him, but you look at his stats as well and you just go, this guy's really good. like end of that.
Yeah.
Your thoughts, Lexi?
I mean, the reason I put Hoglet in third is he has the highest kill participation out of
Yeah, it's a big
anyone
deal
else
for
in the
Axis.
league.
That's fair.
It was a very competitive kill participation. R.I.P. Tussle, who was the third place jungler, as well as once. R.I.P. R.I.P. Weird that the two junglers who didn't make playoff had the second and third highest kill participation.
Well, just can't carry through jungle, right? And then
Well, unless you're Tyler
Boogie
1,
laughing his way to
apparently.
the bank.
Boogie's actually got the third lowest kill participation.
Yes, very, very interesting spot.
I
But then
can't
Boogie carries a lot more.
Also, like, just be aware that will be really struck by people playing Jarvan, because the standard gives you people the...
Yeah, it does.
It gives an assist. There's some champions
Yeah.
which does kind of skew that.
Make it easier.
I mean, Boogie's the only one that doesn't really play Jarvan.
Yeah,
like-
he plays Echo, man. He actually has to get in there.
Yeah, and especially like if we're looking at things like Lee Sin, Elise, Rek'Sai, they're great in the 1v1 getting kill participation, right? But they don't have the AoE effect to sort of really get involved in team fights on loads of them necessarily sometimes.
Yeah. So I really like Hoglet over the last few weeks. I also think he's actually been a player in the earlier few weeks. I went back and watched a few of them. He actually wasn't doing terribly.
He was doing okay.
I didn't like his first week, but outside of that, he was pretty good.
Yeah, and I mean the thing
We'll
is,
give it a pro.
week one, like as I've said from the beginning, everybody gets a pass from me for week one because of just new show jitters.
Sure.
Everything else, they're on stage for the first time, or some of these players, like outside of DFM and some of the more known members, such as like Hatcher Metcha, in Rascal Jesters, some of the V3 guys like Paz and obviously Appermen, have a lot of experience on the stage, but a lot of these players, this is their first time, or this is their first or second year on the stage, and it's still jitters going in. But a lot of the players seem to get out. And Axis, it took 2 or 3 weeks to actually start waking up. But
Yeah, I really did.
he actually started performing half decently in week 2.
And,
so
and Hoglet was really the guy that led the turnaround for them, right?
He was.
Yeah,
The
I think
Olaf
him
Yumi
and
game.
Corporal
Yeah.
really played that very
Yeah,
well.
sure. But
Corporal
yeah, he
has
had the
this-
Olaf Yumi game, and then he had the Sejuani game as well, where he was like the one person really doing stuff. Also, it's worth noting, like, so they had that crushing defeat.
I mean,
versus
Corporal
DFM.
has the fourth best kill participation outside of anyone, and the highest
No, I
support
think, yeah.
by
And,
like a
we'll definitely get around to talking about him.
Oh,
later.
I know, but like it's just kind of like it was interesting to see the whole just this Hoglet pairing.
No, I think Hoglet has been a real trooper for Axes, and I think that even in their loss versus DFM, he was the one shining light.
Yeah.
He was the guy that was really trying to make stuff happen. He was like winning. He was counter ganking top, counter ganking mid, and that's why I'm like, I think this guy has just a real read on the people he's playing against right now, which is why I've put him up in second. And it's gonna be really fun to watch him in playoffs.
Yeah.
I still like Steel. I think Steel's still playing really.
completely.
I think he's
No,
still
I
playing
get that.
really,
No,
really good. I think he's still top 3 in my like. That's why I put him as
This
second.
is why it's controversial.
I understand. Yeah.
Like, I get
Sorry, Lexi.
I get your point. But I just think he's still playing really good and winning basically the first 4 weeks, and then maybe taking a slight back seat is fine by me. Also, when DFM lost, outside of them, well, frankly, when they played against Sengoku, they had already, I think, locked first place by that point, unless something crazy happened. Like, someone had to go undefeated. Sengoku had the best shot at it. They can start having fun. And, like, their V3 loss was definitely them just
Well, there was some
around.
trying
no,
stuff
I think they played that badly. Just in
I think
fact,
they
got
also were
out-teamed.
fucking around, frankly.
I think that in that game they got out team fought. Which
Well, no,
was,
you also
that
don't
was-
play Nautilus.
Yeah,
No,
well, I
Nautilus
don't.
is fine. Nautilus set is fine. It's just like then it was just who was playing them was the weird thing, right?
No, the
You
problem.
just-
Well, there was so
I
many
think. Well, so
problems
here's
with
my
that.
point with this one. Like, I don't think it's necessarily them messing around, but I do think it was them taking a gamble. And that's a bit of. It's not like they just randomly. Like, I know at the end of last summer they picked things like it was 2 teams. that
They
didn't
picked
matter.
Shyvana mid, yeah.
And then there was like a Teemo and stuff, right? Like, it was just silly.
Yeah.
That's when it's like true messing around. This one was like, okay, let's try something a bit weird. Let's try something a bit beyond. We can experiment a bit. It's not like it's completely off the wall, but it's still out there. And it's like, and it wasn't like they were necessarily.
Yeah, I mean, the whole draft in my eyes was. Rather
Yeah, it was weird. It was
stupid.
weird. I grant you, but like I understood the reasoning, even if I didn't necessarily agree.
True. But
like,
yeah,
You know,
it is
like,
what it
even
is.
in that game where it was looking a little bit awkward, they were still scrapping to try and win that. Clutch plays from
Let's
them.
stop just talking about DFM and let's go back to topic. And Sam, Initialize, would you
Hello.
like to lead us through your mid laners?
Yeah, in 6, I don't think unless it comes as a surprise. I've got Ace for V3 there. In 5th, it's Rascal Jesters Ninja. 4, I've got Axis Gariaru. I've got 3rd, I've got Sengoku Gaming's Period. 2nd is Seros from DFM. And 1st is our Lord and Savior, the Church. Formed by him, it is Arya, who has been just sublime.
He's been such a pleasure to watch. In 6th, I also have Ace. I don't think, if you've listened to our cast, I think we've had a lot of question marks about him. 5th, I have Ninja. He had a really good last week, but 1 week does not a player make in a lot of ways, and I think he did have a bit of a shaky split. 4th, I have Seros. So yeah, I've had him a bit lower down than that. 3rd, I have Pyrian. 2nd is Gadiaru, and 1st, Arya.
3rd place, Ace. 2nd place, Ninja. 1st place, Arya.
Okay, right. You're gonna have to explain some of those, dude.
So, Ace, in my opinion, is actually the secret weapon for V3's full turnaround. We give a huge amount of credit to Boogie, right? Boogie is probably the best jungler. We all agreed in our power rankings so far, he is the best jungler. However, the mid lane jungle duo is a duo that is known through thick and thin and everything else. Watching back a few of their games, Boogie kind of needed Ace to do certain things and kind of almost act as a secondary jungler. In my opinion, I think Ace was actually integral to allow Boogie to be able to do. Also, a lot of Boogie's kills came from the mid lane. Like, an overabundance of them came from the mid lane. You can only get a gank on mid lane if it's somewhat set up. Now, obviously, mid ganks, weird spot, blah, blah, blah. Not going to go into it. I'm not a good mid laner, so I'm not going to say too much. But I think he set up a lot of things, and it was a very well played thing. I know it's controversial. You both had him like at dead last place. That's my reasoning.
Okay.
Now I'm going to get told I'm wrong.
And you had Ninja in 2nd, right?
I did, yes.
Okay, right. So
do you want me to go for that one as well, or?
What? Do you want to just finish off the Ace? Do you want to talk about Ace just before?
I'm happy to go. Yeah.
Because no, I absolutely agree that Ace has had some very standout performances. I think his LeBlanc in particular was a really good game. That was the game that they won against DFM. He was dancing in out of team fights. My problem with Ace is that outside of LeBlanc, he does show a couple of his laning mechanics can sometimes be suspect. Just in terms of the way he positions the wave. Sometimes he plays very disrespectfully towards his opponent. His team fighting on some mobile picks has been very good. So obviously, and obviously they made playoffs and he was a big part of that mid jungle duo, as you're saying, rightfully in there. I also think that mid lane is actually a really stacked role in the LJL right now. I think that a couple of the other players I've ranked above him have been really, really key just in like the individual performances as a solo kind of player. I hadn't necessarily thought about it in the mid jungle so much, really. I kind of thought about it a little bit in terms of DFM because obviously they have such a storied mid jungle. But yeah, I might dive into that when we talk about some of the other players.
So I think there's a couple of things I do want to run over you guys. So like, so take I'm on the wrong page here. If you take a look at Arya, his kill share is 37.4%. The next highest is Ninja, 12% lower.
My second place person. Huh.
But it's like one of these things where like Arya's been brilliant, but his GPM has been higher than anybody else in the league. His KDA is pretty spot on. He is so required by his team to carry for them to look good.
Yeah.
And, like, you can see it in the stats. I have got Seros 2nd for a kind of a number of reasons. I think he's he is at the 2nd. He's something like, what is it? He's he's sort of like his CS per minute is 3rd in the league, just behind Pyrian, but only by like 0.1. And he's also just got a great he's doing great things with his goal per minute, and also just interactive. Like the fact is, he warps drafts so much, and that's a big deal. And it's not like he warps drafts in a way where it's like he's just picking something weird and doing it because that's all he can play. It's like he's picking these champions and making you kind of respect them. And it's something we saw from people like Doinby before, where
True.
They do have these abilities to pick champions and go, yeah, maybe you're not used to this, but I still think you can make this work, and not just make it work, but make it seriously scary. And his ability to do that on like 4 or 5 champions is kind of terrifying.
Controversial. I think he's actually 6th place for me.
Who?
Seros.
Seros.
I have my issues about Seros.
His champ pool is my biggest problem.
He's got equal number of as well. I mean,
He doesn't.
I mean, I will say this: he's got an equal number of champs played to Pyrion. He's got an equal number of champs played to Rock.
The problem is they're playing the really good champs, and he's playing the off-branded crap.
I mean, Syndra is definitely meta. I think Cassio's fine.
Yeah, he's playing
I think Ziggs is definitely off there. Like, I agree, there is the fact he doesn't play LeBlanc and so we haven't seen him play them at least is interestingly worrying. My problem with I was struggling with my 2, 3, 4 because Aria was the clear head, and I was like, okay, so who on earth am I putting second, third, and fourth? And I thought those three, Seros, Pyrion, and Gadiadu for me were the three. These guys are the ones I think have looked really good, have done a lot of work for their team, have put up good numbers, and have been quite consistent. I think Ninja and Ace have had a lot more of a coin flip performance. Yeah. But my issue with Pyrion and Gadiadu is like, what are the champions they've looked really, really good on? And I was like, well, LeBlanc and Zoe. And what? We've seen a little bit of rise from Gadiadu that's gone mad, and we've seen Pyrion go towards Orianna and survive. But the fact that those are the two champions you play, and then after that you then it's a bit of mediocrity maybe. I'm like, that's a problem.
I agree with that. I think that Seros does go towards team fighting picks, and if the game doesn't go towards team fights and the game breaks down early enough, he just doesn't have an impact. I think that even in their win versus CGA, when it was the Cassiopeia versus Lucian, his teamfight positioning was a little bit suspect on that Cassiopeia. I think that's my least favorite of his picks. His Syndra is very scary. I don't particularly want to see anyone like get into a bad matchup and that kind of thing there. I haven't talked about Gadiadu yet because I put him at second. I
nearly put him that way because my 2, 3, 4 was so hard to do.
I thought that Gadiadu. So you know that game we were talking about, the V3 one? No, the Rascal Jester one where it was. No, it was the V3 one. You know the backdoor with Gadiadu, right?
Yes.
No, the backdoor with the Camille with Unyem.
Was that versus V3?
Yes.
I believe that was that was versus V3. Yeah. So I would actually say that was due to Pyrion, not Pyrion. Sorry.
Gadiadu.
So my mind's all over the place.
Yes,
I'm just looking at this.
Yes,
it was due. I think that was genuinely due to Gadiadu because he got a massive pick onto the AD carry just against the run of play on his LeBlanc, killed off the Varus even when there were people to defend him there, led that into the push which got the Nexus turrets. He was dancing around all game on that LeBlanc. I think that he has a unique way of doing 2v2s and being like aggressive in team fights without putting himself at risk, which some of the other mid laners can do when they do this. I think he's been really impressive in the last half of the split for Axes.
Yeah, I would definitely agree. I think that combo of both of them from Axis, the top laner and the mid laner, have been very important. I would probably put Gadiadu at fourth if you forced me to do it. That would put Pyrion at fifth, I guess, for me.
For me, I put Hoglet and Gadiadu second in their respective roles. I've been really impressed with their 2v2 mid.
Yeah, I can understand. The thing is, none of these picks I'm disagreeing with entirely. I actually found this one really difficult to do. I think Aria wasn't hard, right? I don't think any of us found it hard to put him there.
No, the guy's crazy.
No, Aria was easy. That was where I started my list.
Yeah. It's like, okay, well, let's do our players of the role. Well, Aria, what are we doing next?
I was like, it was like Ebby first for top. It was like Boogie first for jungle. I was like, Aria mid.
Yeah. But then I hit this issue. It's like, well, my issue was trying to work out what I thought of Seros. And in the end, I went, I think he is very good. I think his champion pool is a good champion pool, but there is an issue. There is like the two glaring holes of LeBlanc and Zoe. So I think the rest of the champs I'm fine with.
I think the other problem.
But then the question is, if I'm thinking that, it's like, if everyone else has to be below him, why? And my issues with Pyrion and Gadiadu was more like, okay, I've seen you guys look good on two champions in particular, and the rest of it I've been ambivalent about, which is a problem in its own way. Kind of narrowness I found a problem.
Who was your third place, Nymaera?
Pyrion for me.
Same
Pyrion. Okay, right. So, okay. I probably should explain why I put Ninja at second.
That's a really good call. Yeah.
So, he has the most champion pool. He has the largest champion pool played, almost double almost double what some of the other players have. I think Ninja over the last few weeks, so I'm going to use something that Nymaera has been doing and going, well, over the last few weeks, even though I've normally been doing it, all of it, but for Ninja's actually one where I'm taking the page out of Nymaera's smart book and going, actually, fuck you, last 3 weeks, Ninja's been fucking insane. Like,
he's been really
actually
good.
Insane for me. Like, I actually now think it's slightly criminal. I don't think he didn't get one of my players of the week. Actually, no, he did get my He did get last week's one. That's fine.
Okay.
That's fine.
Yeah.
That's fine. That's good.
It's week 5. You had the Varus game, which was really good. But yeah.
So I, moving forward, am optimistic for Rascal Jesters as a whole, but also I think their mid lane of Ninja, if he's got this deep of a back pocket, and with time to prep versus certain opponents, where he knows he just has a wider champion pool, he could do some real spicy shit. Some spicy
I think
stuff.
there's something to that.
But also coming in the end, I was really impressed with him.
The thing about having 12 champions is that in itself is, in isolation, is an impressive stat. It's just how many of these champions does he really look really like threatening on? You know, when you talk about Saros and having his Heimerdinger, you're like, okay, you do have to ban that away. How many are ban-worthy champions? I don't think that many are. It does give him some flexibility in draft. He had some really good games, particularly in week 7. He had like the set game versus
Sengoku. So good.
I think
Disgusting.
Yeah, and then he had the Syndra game versus the Hawks. You kind of take that with a bit of salt because it is the Hawks, right? So and they weren't
sadly, that's a thing.
Yeah, I think that even in my problem is that the game which I think maybe is most impressive was his Varus game versus CGA, right? No, against Burning Core. We had to poke Varus. He almost threw that game at the same time he won it.
So that was my problem with him. So I've got 2 things on Ninja because this is why I was finding him very difficult to rate.
Because he can absolutely carry games, but sometimes he's missed more than he's hit some weeks. Towards the end, he's starting to turn it on. I can see why you'd rate him high. I am just worried about him in a high pressure scenario versus some of the more calculated teams, how it might end up throwing a game.
Yeah. So my read on Ninja is this, and this is partly why I had him a little bit down, because I value a level of high levels of consistency, quite high, relatively high. And not just that, like in terms of like good performance with a bit of consistency. I think Ninja is 2 things which is brilliant for Rascal Jest. One, he's a great playmaker. Like we saw in that Varus game, he's probably a great example of both these things. He was flashing for arrows that would have won them games. It also nearly threw them. But he is one of those guys who sees a play, goes for it, and that kind of vision for plays is something that I think is quite impressive in him. And similarly, I think he's a very clutch player, that he has the ability to pull out things in the middle of nowhere and kind of win you games when perhaps he shouldn't, in similar fashions where he finds some of these arrows, finds some of these pokes, which are brilliant. In a similar fashion, though, he does end up in positions where if he doesn't make the clutch play, it's bad news. And that potential volatility is something I find a little bit concerning. It's one of Rascal Jester's greatest strengths. It can also be one of them. And that's why I struggle to put him higher. I totally get why you could, but that kind of volatility is something I can see. Like, it's mercurial, it's brilliant when it works out, but when it doesn't, you land flat on your face.
I mean, take it as it is. I just think he's fucking dope over the last few weeks.
Yeah,
so that's the whole reason. Normally I've been doing everything in the exact way of like from week 1 where everybody gets a pass, it's week 2 to week 7, and this one I'm like, nah, fuck it, ninjas look great.
Particularly for me, like power rankings are meant to show like their form at the current time, right? Like, I mean, if you go back to week 1, our power rankings look very differently. Obviously, you learn new things, players start playing differently, patches change, the game changes, right? And their teams change around them. So yeah, I think in this one, I could definitely understand Ninja being higher. I'm not convinced just yet.
Well, the thing is, for me, he could oscillate anywhere from where he is to like way down the bottom of the standings in the power rankings to way up the top. And he does have that ability, and we've told you about this before, but like this guy has got such a history as a player in some ridiculous situations. Like this was the guy who was at IEM or World Elite in 2015, who took down the undefeated GE Tigers in the mid lane of a World Elite that was last place in the LPL. Like they were awful, and then they came in. This was with Spirit in the jungle, who's over for the Freak of Freaks right now, and they won partly because Ninja was brilliant. And he's been all over the globe in so many leagues and found ways to, at points, look really good. At points look quite bad too, but at points look pretty brilliant. And he has got a massive amount of history, and for that reason, it's very difficult for me to ever count him out. At the same time, though, I can say it sometimes makes it a little bit difficult for me to count him in, because I'm never quite sure whether Ninja's going to turn up or turn down.
Well, with that all said, Nymaera, can you take us through your bot laners?
Yeah, we are turning down. We're turning down to the bottom side of the map. In 6th place, I have Hyde from Axes. 5th, I have Gango from CGA. In fourth, I have Art from Rascal Jester. In third, I have Archer from V3. Second, Utapon from DFM. And first, Yutori Miyashi from Sengoku.
Okay, Initialized. Yours?
I have Axis in 6th as well. I'm sorry, I have Hyde from Axis in 6th as well.
The whole team of Axis!
Yeah. You know, they're so bad around bot lane, we just...
Oh, it's what happened. I actually think Hyde has stepped up over the last few weeks. It pained me to put him there, but I actually think the bot lane is fairly stacked for the LJL as well. I've got Archer in 5th, who's had a couple clutch performances the last few weeks, but some of his DPM numbers I kind of want to see a little bit more from. I've got Gango in 4th. Maybe I'll come back to this one because he was a tricky one for me to rate.
Same.
I've got Art in 3rd. I've got Utapon in 2nd from DFM and Yutori Miyashi from Psycho Gaming in 1st because he's just been. I mean, he got my bot laner of the week 3 weeks in a row, like 5, 6, 7. But he was just so good. When Sengoku Gaming were bad, he was good. When they were good, he was great. Like this guy.
The guy's a monster. Yeah.
So we can just roll back the tape for the last 30 seconds and repeat back, and it's exactly the same. Art in 3rd place, Utapon in 2nd place, Yutori Miyashi in 3rd.
There we go. See, you got man of talent.
So my one difference is I have Archer in 3rd and Sam in 5th, I believe. So I guess I need to defend that a little bit. I think that V3, when they've been playing around team fights so much, and that does put Archer under an undue amount of burden in a lot of these team fights. He's been going back to a couple more of the crit carries and stuff, and he's had some really good games. I think his Ezreal was also one of the best ones we've seen too when we saw him pull that out.
Yeah.
And alongside Reyna in the bot lane, they've made some pretty crazy 2v2s as well. I think that I've just been really impressed by this guy. I couldn't remember the exact reasoning for like putting him up. So, because it was hard for me putting him over Art, because I think Art has been Rascal Jester's like stalwart guy, and again Art has a really different champion pool, which helps his team as well. When we're talking about Ninja and we were talking about all of the other guys there, those two tend to be like doing really well on that front. I think Archer has been a very consistent AD carry on the whole. He hasn't had, not as consistent as Utapon or as Yutori Miyashi. He has had some very high highs as well. One game which comes back to mind is his this game versus CGA, the second one, when he picked the Xayah and he just kind of out team fought CGA on the scaling AD carry. If you can manage to do that in playoffs, I think it puts V3 and their whole style as a team into very good stead.
Yeah. I'm in a similar position. So Archer I found quite difficult to rank in that. He had one or two plays where I went, that was genuinely brilliant. So there was one particular one versus the Hawks. I think you were casting this one with me, Lexi, where it was Archer and Reyna in the mid lane. It was Archer on Miss Fortune, Reyna on the Thresh, and there was 2 attempted dives onto that mid lane tier 1, where they outplayed both of them really, really well. And I was like, I can see Archer's highs. I think he's very, very good. But then I was looking at the guys above him and I was thinking, I've just seen a little bit more out of the guys above them for me to put them that high. That's not to say I don't think Archer could perform and beat these guys, because I think there's a lot of talent there, but I'm just not entirely sold yet.
Yeah, I mean, I was the exact same as Sam, and almost the exact same. I think it's really telling that we've all 3 of us put Yutori Miyashi and Utapon in 1st and 2nd. I think these 2 out of anybody else, and I'm going to say a bold statement, but you both might agree with me. They're by far the best 2 bot laners, and there's almost like a bit of a gap between the next 3rd place player, in my opinion.
I kind of agree. Yeah.
I don't know. I think that Art and Archer have done some really good stuff too. Like,
there
is a divide. I'm not. It's the thing is, like, there's such a divide in like top jungle mid. I'm just like, it's not the same level of those. I don't think.
Like, I would argue it is for me.
Between Abby and 2nd place and top lane, I think that's probably the biggest one. And then obviously,
I think Utapon and Yutori Miyashi are just that much better than everybody else at the moment.
But the thing is that like Archer and Art, in my opinion, they've had some moments where I'm just like those guys don't lose you games, and they very often win you them as well. Utapon and Yutori Miyashi do that, but to a higher extent. My problem with Gango and Hyde is that sometimes they just like randomly lose you a game. I'm just like, okay.
We don't talk about Gango. Well, I mean, Gango does it more than I would say Hyde, because Hyde almost never gets to the place where he could throw personally.
So
because normally the whole of Axis goes down in a sinking shark tank, and they're just like, we'll all go down together.
So like,
It's in the body. The
there's very
narwhals in the
yes.
water.
Oh yeah, it's Braun.
Yeah. There's very few times I think KDA is a particularly useful stat, but I do think with AD carries it's often quite important because it just shows how much of your uptime is there and how and how kind of available you're being. For example, Hyde has a 2.78 KDA, the lowest in the league. Utapon has the top at 10.
Yeah, that's kind of insane.
And then it's Tutorial actually at 7.3, and then it's a drop of 2 down to Archer at about 5.5 or 5.71 here. And Art's just below him as well. So like Utapon and Utorium actually for me have just been that level better where they've just been able to consistently stay alive and put out some pretty insane damage numbers.
I will put a caveat in here though. The tiebreaker between CJ and Burning Core, Gango had arguably he had one of the best AD carry performances we've seen. He played the Xayah, he was flashing forward, and this guy, he looked great in lane, he looked fantastic in team fights. He was like one-shotting people when he hit several crit items. If he plays like that in playoffs, he's going to be really threatening.
Okay, we're gonna end that one there because we could easily go on a huge conversation about CGA.
Can I just?
But I want to go into playoff discussion in playoff section. If that's okay.
Can I? Yeah.
It's my
100%. Very important point.
Gango could be third. He could be third for me. He could be.
So I've got Gango in 4, and my reason for him being there is kind of those reasons. Like at his best, he has been unstoppable.
Phenomenal.
His Draven game, for example, amazing. His Xayah game,
or his
amazing.
Helios game versus Axis, right? That was so good.
We've seen occasional moments of brilliance on his Callista. We've also seen some roughness from him. I will also I think it's sometimes a little bit difficult to judge how good he is when I think Grendel has largely been quite bad.
Do you want to go on to the next bit of the list then? Do you want to do supports?
Which means I'm not so like Gango's been brilliant. I've also seen some not great stuff from him. I'm not entirely sure how much of that is due to Grendel being a bit suspect.
So
yeah, do you want me to do that? Or
go for it. I was gonna try and get you to do that, but you started another tangent, so I was gonna let you.
Oh no!
Tire yourself out, and then I'll let you go for support.
Oh, he's tuck it out. He's got to tuck it out. Now say your supports, because they can take care of you.
Yes, so I think it's probably no surprise, having just had that little tangent, that in 6th place for me is CGA's Grendel.
Yeah.
A lot of positioning errors, a lot of aggressive positioning that's been really punished.
Boy, can't play Nautilus.
Like, yes.
There's something to be said when he's dying like 5 times a game with Nautilus, having a Callista.
Exactly. And when you're putting Gango onto Callista,
poor Gango.
And then not being able to use the Fate's Call aggressively is
always the same thing.
And that is a genuinely problem. And it's things like when he's going for warding missions, he's kind of going alone or just too far away from the rest of the team.
Bless him.
Okay. I will. Okay. Just because I don't want to completely flame him. I'll drop this now. Like, it kind of reminds me of the Hachani train of thought, where like he knows he can be. If he knows that his team's in a position to win a team fight, he can kind of just get caught just to start the fight. So,
Nymaera, would you mind filling our listeners in on this analogy, because I'm not getting it either.
Okay, so Hachani was this old support who was back on KT Bullets.
Yeah.
No, the KT Arrow was back in season 4.
Was it Side Arrow? Was he the support to Arrow?
I can't remember. Anyway, so he was an old support where effectively, even though he was one of the best mechanical supports, had some really good moments, he would always get caught doing something random about 2 or 3 times a day. Game.
Okay.
Probably a day as well. He just face check a day. And that's why he reminds me of Grendel. Or Grendel reminds me of him. Because like sometimes you're just like, this guy can land really good hooks, he can 2v2 really well, but he'll just like randomly die. The good thing is that if your team is in a position to win a fight, you now have a fight. Great stuff. The problem is if you're behind, it just makes it even worse. So yeah, he's in 6th for me too.
Yeah. My 5th place, I don't know whether this is a little bit controversial or not. I put Sengoku Gaming's NT. I will say I think it was really tight for me between 3 and 4, 5.
Remember. We'll have a discussion together.
Yeah. Yep. 4, I've got Rascal Jester's Vivid. 3 is Axis Corporal. 2 is V3 Reyna, who's really impressed me over the last few weeks. Genuinely very, very good. And then number 1 is DFM's Gang, who I just think
Gang.
So good. Like, this man has been consistently very, very good.
Okay, and my list is Grendel in 6th from CGA. In 5th is V3's Vivid. 4th is Sengoku's NT.
Yeah.
In 3rd is Axis Corporal. 2nd is V3's Reyna. And in 1st is Gang from DFM.
What a surprise.
So that's a repeat. Can I join on the repeat train of Corporal in 3rd, Reyna in 2nd, and Gang in 1st?
So we're all agreed on that. Right.
Yeah.
Do we want to go through our differences first or start singing some praises?
about.
Let's sing some
Did
praises.
we have any differences in support?
There's a little bit for me. I had Sengoku Gaming. I had NT in 5th.
Oh, it's just
and
NT.
in 4th.
Okay,
That
and
was the only switch.
If anything, there's not even much to talk about there because I thought that like on the whole, I think NT turned it on a bit in the last couple of weeks. He found some champions he was doing better on.
Fuck it, I'm saying let's be upbeat.
Yeah.
But then, like,
Holy
we get to
shit!
his top 3.
Gang is still the best support,
Yeah,
and
he is.
It's not even close. I'm sorry to everybody else that support, but oh my god, Gang is so fucking good.
Yeah. He's
Does
just
it help
crazy.
Does it help that he's laning with Yusupon? Oh yeah, but the
does.
fact that the two of them are a terror. Like we saw it in that. So remember, they came off that last week. They came off a loss, which was one where they were in this ridiculous situation. It was over a kill a minute. They were on weird champions. They come into the last game of the split and go, screw it.
Yeah.
And the 2v2 in the bot lane is a demolition. Like it's actually quite difficult to watch. They level the turret in like minutes. Then they go around the map and wherever they turn up, it's a boom. It's a Varus and a Senna just going boom. We poke you from 30 miles away and kill you.
That was
Boom,
the
we
Axis
don't have a
game.
kill.
I think it was I think it was an 8-minute turret.
Yeah, it was
It was
just.
I'm sure
Just
because
before the Herald was like actually taken, like it was just like, oh no.
yeah, it was nuts. Yeah, there were a couple of games like that week, but that one was like the Varus arrow and the last like the route from Senna into the arrow from Varus. It's like, what do you do if one of those things hits? What do you do?
Poke Varus as well, so the double poke lane. Yeah, nasty stuff.
So Reyna in second. Again,
Yeah.
a man. I think arguably Reyna again has been popping off the last few weeks
Big reason
specifically.
V3's been working so well.
Very
Big reason.
specifically the last few weeks. Earlier, a little bit more falling under the radar. Not performing horribly, but not performing outstandingly.
Yeah,
Just
I agree with
fine.
you.
But oh my god, this man. Oh, give him Thresh.
Like he's got the second highest KD in the league. He's doing about 8 assists a game, which is the second highest number of assists in the game. Like he's like he's less than a point. He's like 0.8 deaths a game. He's like it's 1.7 deaths a game, which is pretty good as well. Like this guy has been all over the place. Particularly, I think his Thresh in the last couple of weeks.
Yeah.
Oh, so good.
And actually, I've been really impressed with his Tom Kench.
Yeah.
He plays a really mean team fight, Tom Kench, and he's playing alongside Archer, like I've praised very heavily. I think that when he's put into position to team fight very, very well. V3 play around team fights. We know this now.
We do.
They play around it when they come in with a really fed jungle and all this other stuff. And then just like having Reyna on this peel support, whether it's something like a Braum or a Tom Kench or a Thresh, he's just there like just making sure the team fight goes smoothly.
Yeah,
Something like this.
consistently as well.
Yes, exactly.
They went on
Exactly
this
that.
huge winning streak. It had to work, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
But it was
and, like,
them all coming together and doing
Big
this.
time.
And I think it's
Yeah, I mean,
really
it's-
nice that we've all kind of gone, actually, it's not just the Boogie Show. Actually, over the last few weeks,
And that's why V3 finished third. They are a threat across the board now.
they totally,
Yep.
and they took a game from DFM. I'm still going to stick by it. DFM wanted
Yeah.
to punt a game. I'm going to keep my head in the sand for that one.
Yeah. It was a fun game either way. It was.
I sort of see it. I mean, they were trying something a bit out there. I don't think it was a straight punt, but there was definitely a soft toss of the ball. Like,
But oh my god, who expected Corporal in third?
No, especially when he
This
came
guy.
in replacing someone who was kicked out very late. From
right?
Yeah, but there's something to be said. Yeah, there's something to be said about coming in with less prep.
Than anybody. The whole of the
Yeah,
Hawks
literally.
team had far more prep time than him.
Yeah, and I think one of the impressive things for me is that obviously we haven't been too impressed by Hyde. We have occasionally, but you know, against a lot of the other bot laners in the league, it is a hard ask to try and perform against them, and Hyde has not really been the premier. And laning against that, and then still impressing us to the point where like he's teaming up really well.
His
with
Thresh has
Adu.
been on fucking
His Thresh has been on
Yeah.
point. His Yumi's been one of the best in the league.
Oh,
This
his
guy's
Yumi
been-
might be the best in the league.
It may
It's,
well
it's
be.
definitely up there.
May
It's
well
definitely
be.
up there.
Him
And then
and
obviously
Gang.
him and Hogler have teamed up really well as
Massively
well.
so.
So yeah, I think this guy deservedly deserves third. I think that he's been consistent to a T. He's been playing various different champions depending on his role.
The crazy thing to
overly
me is he's played Thresh 4 times, been popping on them, and yet they haven't given him a win on it.
Yeah,
That's the
I mean, there was
disappointing
one-
thing. But then he's
It's the
100%
playstyle.
win
It's the
percentage on
playstyle.
Nautilus, so like, what? You just take it and leave it, right?
So, like, it's one of those things where I remember which was the game where they nearly won with, it was the Jinx game. Where
Oh,
it
that was
interesting.
so
It was CG,
good.
where like there was some like
Should have won that.
basically this was the game where we had no expectations of Axis at this point. We thought they had some
Cameron
cool
was,
drafts but weren't playing that well. And Corporal made me blink my eyes a few times in that game. And when Axis started turning on, it was on the backs of Corporal and Hoglet starting off, and the rest of the team has stepped up around them.
It's
I
really
think Gary
weird
O
to
and
say.
Initia1ise,
Oh yeah, and now they've
from
come
the last
up. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, but I do think like so for Corporal in that game, there was some. I think he managed to get like an amazing
blind
hook
hook
into
onto
play.
Grendel.
Yeah,
So
into the box
good.
over the wall, killed his Nautilus, and there was another one like around a dragon fight where he basically went for a flash hook onto a scuttle crab to pull his way out of the way, nearly escaped with just some really stylish heads-up play. He's been a great playmaker. He's been a very smart player, and mechanically has pulled off some things where I've gone, yeah, you've got it. There is a little bit of something to him that makes me go, you've got a lot of talent, even when things aren't going well.
Nymaera, any other closing thoughts on your supports?
Okay. I mean, I do think that Gang is still by far the best support. I think.
Yeah.
That came like as much as I praise the other ones, Gang is still the guy to watch. And I think alongside, I think that Ebby also on the top side of the map has a very large difference between him and the next top lane. I think that these two in particular are such pillars of consistency for DFM. Although all the players of DFM are consistent, so that's kind of just keeping in tune there, really.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that's all I've got for supports, really.
I mean, that's the other thing I'll say about Gang is we've seen that last week, the fact he pulled out 2 carry center games as well. Yeah, the first one. Yeah, and like he's the only support in the league doing that at the minute. Like the fact he can play the Yuumi and play that as well, like Yuumi being that kind of pseudo AP.
And the thing for me is that he played a center alongside an AD carry. We haven't seen that before in the LJL.
No,
so
not in the LJL, no.
Yeah, so and we saw it against the Varus. It worked really well. I don't think it works versus aggressive lanes. You have to try and do that as a counter pick.
Yeah, against Braum, I think if you have a Braum lane, I think that's and it's not someone like tied with an Ezreal. I think you can probably aggressively punish.
What's the thing? They did it versus the Ezreal Yuumi, knowing they could just poke them out with a serious burst combo. Like it's a problem when they have like really hard engage. Like they picked like Leona, Kalista, like we saw.
Yeah, and then you just don't pick that because you're just like one of us die, and then the other one dies.
Yeah. However, if you have the center, you can just flex it to the carry role and have a proper support. So it's really important for them. So anyway, I think that's all I've got for supports.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, congratulations to everybody for the higher... Fuck it, whatever, I don't care. Let's get into our top 10. Fuck it.
Yes.
How we're going to do this is I am now going to go first, say my top 10, then Initia1ise is going to say his, then Nymaera is going to close us out with his one, and then we're going to have discussions about our top 10s, maybe some placement discussions and everything else like that. In 10th place is Yutapon for me. In 9th place is Ninja. In 8th place is Appaman. In 7th place is Reina. In 6th place is Gang. In 5th place is Steel. In the 4th place is Yutori Aishi. In 3rd place is Arya for me. In 2nd place, it's Boogie. And in 1st place, still King of the Hill, it's Ebby.
I see those. I think I'm not sure. I like so my power rankings. I like it. So my way down in what's going on here?
10th.
Where's my 10th?
I can do it. I can do mine if you'd like.
No, let's have a second. I'll go right over here and I'll go rescue it. I didn't copy it. So in 10th place I have Corporal. In 9th place I have Reina. In 8th place I have Blank. 7th place I've got Art. 6th place I've got Yutapon. 5th place is Gang. 4th place, I have Sengoku Games Yutori Miyashi. In 3rd, it's Arya. 2nd, I have Ebby. And in 1st place...
You cut out for 1st place. I'm guessing 1st place was Boogie.
It was Boogie, yes.
Okay, so I guess I'll just finish off mine before we start discussing anything.
Yeah.
So in 10th place, I have Archer. In 9th, I have Pyrion. In 8th, I have Gang. 7th, Gadiadu. In 6th, I have Yutapon. 5th, Hoglet. 4th, Yutori Miyashi. 3rd, Arya. 2nd, Ebby. And in 1st, Boogie.
Okay, I'm going to now copy everybody's stuff across. Well, actually, no, I'm just going to copy... I'm just going to grab Initia1ise's, because...
I've just moved my top 10 to the top there so you can see it.
Oh, where at the top?
Just underneath Nymaera's stuff, if you look. Yeah.
Cool. I'm going to cut Nymaera's then. And then I will just paste it above mine. And there we go. And then we can all see each other's nice and easy and stuff.
Nice.
So our top 3 are the same, just slightly different orders.
Different orders. And I think it's reasonable arguments for all of them.
Yeah, I think there's reasonable there. I'm not going to complain about that at all. Right, okay, I can see everything there.
Yeah.
So, why have you put Ebby in first, Lexi? Because obviously me and
we've talked about Boogie a lot.
Yeah.
So
why have you gone for Ebby first?
So, Boogie, in my opinion, is the best player in the LJL. I also think Ebby is the only player in the LJL who is this high outside of Ardia. I mean, Ardia, there's a lot to say about him later, but Ebi has only played in Japan his whole professional career, and I honestly think he's world-class talent. Like,
Yes,
I
he is.
genuinely
Yes.
believe he is the best player in the league, in my opinion, because of just what he knows, his tenure in the league. He's done this consistently throughout years in the league. He plays around the map better than anybody else in my eyes. He's aware of everybody. It's hard to catch him out. He's just so much better than one, any other top laner, and two, then almost just everybody else. This top 3 is pretty close, arguably top 4 to be honest, because we've all got the same top 4. But like, I honestly do believe he is just so good. Boogie's a close second. Boogie, though, has played in a different region.
And also, he's played an MSI.
He has.
We know we're
Yes.
talking about world-class talent. Ebi is, world-class talent.
So
I
is
agree.
Boogie.
I definitely agree. Boogie is like legitimately gold-certified world-class talent. He
Yes.
has played at MSI. He has played against the first-ranked seed teams. They went 3-7. They didn't end up progressing from that there. But he was on the Flash Wolves. This is like one of the all-time great teams. One of them up there, and he was a core part of their last iteration of their lineup.
And when they won, it was on him.
And when they won this split as well, V3 have done it largely through Boogie as well. I think my reasoning, if I was going to put Ebi first, because I would have made an argument I was pretty close to, is that Ebi is so far above the next competition. In my eyes, like I've said before.
Massively.
I think that having a differential of that level between your opponent creates just such a dichotomy across the world. I don't know if that's the word. They had created like this just massive vat of pressure in the top lane. It's like, well, you're gonna have to deal with Ebi at some point.
Work.
Let's be real. If we could, we would have put Ray Farkey in second, I think, for a lot of us, if we could
Top
have.
laner,
Yeah,
but he's
that-
not there.
He's not there, so you can't even put, in our eyes, probably the second best top laner in the league, because this is only playoff players.
That's
Yeah.
why I've been hammering on the where's this competition. That's why I've been hammering on that. Ray Farkey
But
ain't
big
there.
deal.
That's it. But for me, Ebi is just kind of dumpstered on everyone. You did say this, Initia1ise, before in episode 1. Way back in episode 1 of the podcast, you said he's gonna be the best, and like no one, because I know I'm stroking your fucking ego here. I at least can admit when I'm fucking wrong, but it was a very impressive call, and
Big time.
honestly, Boogie's proven. It's the weirdest thing to say. I want Boogie to go to a different region, because unless the LJL actually perform to a world top class level, like get out of group stages,
They're
and
not
everything
gonna get a
else.
second seed for stuff.
No, but Ebi could be a Japanese first, and actually make it to like a finals of worlds. And if Ebi made a finals of worlds, I would be like,
I
you know
mean,
what?
they need to
Not
make it to
fucking
group stage
surprised.
first.
No. But Ebi could go to another team and be
Yeah,
world
he
class
could go to,
talent.
if he was willing to go to another region,
100%. He has to be willing, speak probably another language, all this other stuff, and
I could see Ebi going to LPL or something like that. If Ebi could work in an LPL team, that'd be pretty fun. I don't think any LCK teams would particularly go for imports, but I think maybe LPL he could work.
If he
you
wanted to go to
understand why-
somewhere
or
like
even
EU,
LCK, or
Oh yeah, if you went to
LCK 's a
EU
little
or
bit
NA.
interesting. EU would be really fun.
Yeah,
Oh,
EU.
NA. Oh, NA poaching.
he would
But
legit
could you
be
imagine-
probably top 2 in NA right now, which is
Oh no, NA's
Well,
actually got some really good top lanes.
I still
That's
think
what
he's
I'm
that
saying.
good.
Someday
I think-
licorice, someday licorice,
Someday
Broken
Licorice are
Blade,
really good.
Broken
That's
Yeah.
the problem.
But
like,
the thing is, I think he compete against them, which is
Yeah.
a scary thought. Like, I
it'd be
think
fun.
this guy could compete against someday. That's
It's a terrifying
that's
prospect.
amazing. Yeah,
I
that's
mean,
kind of
and at last Worlds he solo killed Vizicachi, right, in the planes.
that's kind of amazing, right?
And as much as he's retired now and he did have some duff games even throughout his pro career, so Vizicachi is a renowned top laner. This guy is not an easy takedown. Oh, Ebi was playing his famous Gnar, is that lane
and
dominant pick?
yeah,
It's-
comfort pick and still wins. Like
Yeah.
a lot to say about the pick.
pretty crazy.
But let's be
Yeah.
real, Boogie is the god
He's
of
such-
the jungle.
oh,
He
It's
is
just so crazy.
just so good at this jungle. He's my second place player. He could have been first in other times. I just kind of
Yeah.
wanted to
And
put Ebi
the
first.
reason,
Yeah,
the reason
I
why
totally see Abby.
The reason I've put him first, and it's partly because we did this when we were describing our players of the week in the last episode as well. Boogie has a way of playing these meta champions in a way which I just hadn't really considered. He's playing Elise as though it's a frontline term,
tank.
a frontline team fighter. You're buying time with the Repel, getting out with HP, getting out with the Zonyas as well, playing Echo in a very similar vein. No one can imitate this guy's style. If he gets ahead in a game on these kind of champions, he just does more with his picks than anyone else. And he does have different picks too. You know, he has played stuff like the Echo, but he does play his Elise, he plays his Lee Sin, plays the Rek'Sai as well, plays the Gragas. He's shown some fantastic games on all of them. Don't put him on Skarner, please don't do that. But, you know, if
Don't
he's
put him on
playing with
Trundle.
Don't put him on Trundle. No Trundle Skarner. Ban.
Right.
No, just get rid of them. But I think this guy just does way more with his picks than anyone else does.
Yes. Yeah, I agree. I think there's a reason V3 win fast, and it's on the back of people like Boogie and Reyna kind of going really balls to the wall for picks and dives and stuff, and it's great fun to watch. And Ace on like Nocturne, right? And when they play that style, they play it so well. And Boogie is really, really good at it, and he's got a very sort of creative champion pool to allow that to happen. I have got him in first. That's not to say I don't have some concerns about him. Like, if the meta was ever to shift to where he was kind of onto Sejuani duty, for example, and there is that possibility.
I think he's going to get lucky. I think he'll be lucky. I think he'll be fine for playoffs, which is frankly all he's actually gives a fuck about right now, right?
For now, yeah.
Absolutely.
Which is
if we're going to talk about Sejuani duty, so like obviously we all have Yutori Miyashi in fourth, but I just want to make this quick aside because of the whole Sejuani duty to my fifth place Hoglet, actually, if that's okay.
Yeah.
I think Hoglet is featured in my list, is not featured in any of yours. Like I said, I think he's done, for me, he was the guy that really turned it on alongside Corporal for Axis to really step up and start doing stuff. I think Galliardo had a very consistent split. He's also in my list as well. But Hoglet has come in with, I think his last 2 weeks, I don't think he personally had a bad game. And he had the 2 Jarvan games when they went 2-0 in week 5, and I was like, okay, actually, he wasn't the best player then. Week 4 was the week when he had the Olaf, and then the other game where he went just absolutely crazy. This guy in his last 2 weeks, though, I think that he showed that he would, and he also had this Sejuani game in week 4, right, which is why I brought it back to him. I'm like, this guy would be absolutely fine if it went towards more tank-initiated junglers as well. This guy has shown a lot of propensity towards that kind of role play in the team. He doesn't have to be the carry. He plays off of his other teammates very well. So I've put him in 5th for me.
That's fair.
So
let's go on to 3rd place though. Let's go back to 3rd place. 3rd place, we all put Arya.
Yes, we did.
Why did we do that?
For me, I think Arya has been the sole reason CJ have been winning, really, in a lot of ways. Like, I went over his stats earlier, but the fact he's on a 37% kill share, like, he's 12% higher than anybody else in the role. Like that kind of thing. He's got the highest GPM in the league for his mid as well. Like, there's just some of these things where you go, that's kind of nuts.
It's unfair. It's unfair he's this good at the game.
Yeah, like, he is genuinely really, 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 really good.
Every game there is a significant chance that he 1v9s.
Yeah,
and
he's the highest GPM in the mid by like 50. The next highest is Seros.
Yeah.
So
I just think. Yeah.
So when does NA come knocking for Arya? When does that happen?
Yes.
I mean, that must be on the table. Korean mid laner, just
I think if
playing
he has,
the best in the league.
I think if he has a good summer alongside a good split, he could genuinely entertain some international offers. I think he genuinely could. Mainly because he's done it on so many different picks. He's not like a one-trick.
No, that's a big deal as well.
He's not just playing the LeBlanc and the Zoe. He is very good at those too. But he's done stuff on the Silas, done stuff on the Azir as well. Even though they lost to Axis on the Azir, his early game looked really good on that champion. He's just done it on so many different picks. He's also had a load of unique stuff.
So
and
the
being
reason
that,
I've not put
point
him...
when they were losing or did lose a game, he was still good.
Yeah,
he was
didn't
still
have
good.
a bad game, I don't think.
So the reason I've not put him in first, though, is, like, every now and then I've seen him just, like...
Stutter in the late game.
Stutter in the late game. In a way that I think Ebby and Boogie have... Not that they haven't made mistakes, but they've stuck the landing more consistently. Like, even when Ebby, say, died, he's normally done it to great success everywhere else on the map. Like, there was, the one game when he went, like, 6-5 on set. It was like, yes, but every time he did that, he would, like, burn... poor old Dash's, Mordekaiser's flash, and we've like chasing him behind all these towers, and Boogie as well as like has been kind of such a solid player at most points in the game. I've sometimes seen Arya in the late game go.
I think the telling one for me was their loss they had against Rascal Jester.
That was bad. They should have won.
Because there was this one point, because it was Lexi and I casting this, when CGA were looking around Baron, and Arya was there in a solo lane versus the Azir, and I was like, if Arya chooses to flash onto the Azir here, he dies without a real second thought. And if they kill the Azir, then you can teleport back up. Instead, they got a little bit antsy. They went towards the Baron anyway. They lost. They got that. Oh no, I think they had a bad fight around that actually, and then that kind of opened up the game. Something like that. But it's like sometimes even though he's really far ahead in the game, he hasn't quite managed to like really pummel in his advantage in the way that Evie and Boogie
or
does.
transfer it like Boogie does in a way.
Oh, Boogie, yeah, he's the most selfless of these three players.
Which is insane because he doesn't have anywhere near the KDA that you'd expect, or no, the kill participation that you would expect for a player like that. But fuck it, fucking works for V3 right now, so no one give it a question mark.
Yes.
But our fourth place on all of us was Yutori Muashi. A player
Super carry.
Yes.
This guy has been so good.
Yeah.
Like, his last 3 weeks in particular have been so good.
I mean, the best in the role, that consist. Also, it's like one of these weird things when you look at his like over the weeks when they lost, he wasn't really the one that punted it away.
No, absolutely not. He's been maybe the most consistent player in the LJL. Maybe. Oh,
Yeah,
I'm
right.
trying to think.
there.
Even in the games where they were like losing, he was the guy who was like the one blip I can think of was versus the Hawks when he got one shot by Ramone. But like that's like one moment. This guy has just been so hard to clear off of team fights. In the early weeks, he found it hard to make a dent in team fights because the rest of his team was like, as Sam lovingly calls it, just the corpse, really. Like in the last couple of weeks, you know, he was
At worst, he has a 0 KDA, and that's because he only dies once. And that was in two completely different games.
Yep.
His worst spot is that he dies once and they lose the game.
So, you know,
every
in
other
that-
way,
like,
he always gets far higher KDA.
So in that horrific V3 game, the rest of his team, Appleman went 1-3-5, Blank went 0-3-3. And then Pyrian went 0-0-8, no kills. N2 went 0-0-8, no kills. Yutori Muashi, 8-0-1. Like, this guy just, I don't know, finds ways to do dumb things on AD carries.
yeah.
It is.
No, I think it's deservedly fourth. This guy is always late game insurance, has really good laning phase. I think he maybe had. There was that one game where they were against. I think it was against Burning Core. Was it the Yuhi game when they played the Senna?
Oh, yeah.
This was it. Senna Shen, and they played a Felios Thresh, and they took down
Yes.
solo at 7-8 minutes, and it's just sat there like. I didn't know you could do that in the pro league, really. So no, they have really. They're arguably the best 2v2 in the league as well. Yutori Muashi.
There was also that ridiculous in that particular game as well. It was the one where Yutori Muashi deleted Yuhi on the as a Felios, where he went like, was it?
He knows his
U
damage.
auto R auto, completely disappointed. You know, they Senna just disappeared.
So yeah, I think Yutori Muashi has just been playing really, really solidly throughout all of this. We're at a part where our lists are going to diverge. There is a few things now where we can pick up, as we all did somewhat agree. One of this is gang. We all put around the midpoint. Sam, you put him at 5th. I put him at 6th. Alex 7th. So basically, somewhat.
I put him at 8th rather.
It says 7th on your list.
No, it's Gadiado at 7th.
Oh, that's Gadiado. Yeah, gang is at 6th. Both begin with G. It's hard for me.
Jeez.
But like we've rated them in the lower but still top 10 of the table.
Yep.
I think gang's been pretty solid from a support.
Yeah.
No, I think that gang has been superb. I just think that a lot of the other roles have been really stacked and they've kind of had more chance to really be showy. I think gang hasn't really been as explosive in the 2v2 as you know some seasons and some metas are. So sometimes that takes away our cognitive focus on it. So sometimes when you see all the kills on screen, like wow, this guy's so good. He has had some really fantastic team fights. He is by far the best support. He's not necessarily had the carry moments of some of the other players on this list, which is why he's a bit lower for me. But he is more than a worthy top 10.
Mid lane bias, I see.
Yeah, so I've got gang. I've got gang here in 5th for a number of reasons. I think he's got most unique champ picks for the support role of the game. He's looked good on pretty much all of them. That's from a Taric, which is a very different game, to a Rakan, to a Thresh, to the carries like Senna. That kind of thing gives me a lot of faith in his abilities. And I've kind of put basically in as a duo as DFM's bot lane. So I've got a gang in 5th, Utapon in 6th. I put Utapon the one below, mainly because I think Utapon's been very consistent. He has on occasion stepped a little bit far forward in fame when gang's not around and got himself picked off by I think it was Vivid did that to him once on the Nautilus. And I was like, well, that kind of thing where it goes that. Whereas where he can just sometimes get a little bit cocky, whereas I think gang just that doesn't happen with him really.
I
think our bot lane has been really, really damn good. That last game of the split, we saw it fast game of the split largely because those two were so damn good.
Okay, so I know that both of you put Utapon below gang. I actually put him a couple of places. I put him in 6th, which is the same ranking as Sam did.
Yep.
But you guys put Utapon a little bit. No, so I put Gang below him. I think that Utapon has just been a really consistent carry in my eyes. Really, I think that alongside Gang, they've been very, very good in team fights. Utapon, if you give him a lead on AD carry, he just doesn't lose games really, in the same way that Nymaera does. But I think that Utapon, maybe I take some points off of him because he has such a stable map to play around.
That's what makes it difficult.
It makes it really difficult because arguably, if you switch Nymaera and Utapon and took them into each other's teams, how would they do stuff? I think that Utapon is slightly less aggressive in the 2v2 compared to Nymaera. Sometimes he's more aggressive in team fights. I think it's close between them for me. It is. I was considering putting Utapon first for a number of reasons, but so that's why he's in 6th for me.
I mean, he made my list. He was 10th. I think he was good. The reason he's at 10, I could probably put him in lower, frankly. He could have not made my top 10. I think he's still a really good AD carry. The difference is it's just I probably value other roles over carry lane. I also think AD carries a different role for...
Damn support mains.
Yeah, AD carries are the bane of my existence as a support main. So in my opinion, I think he's obviously very good. He's made my top 10. It's just... Someone has to be lower, someone has to be higher.
Yeah, so at the end of the day,
and I've also rated like I think I'm the only one that's got
Steel on the list.
Reyna, Steel.
I've got Reyna.
Oh, you've got Reyna. Have you got Apperman?
I don't.
I've also got Ninja, which neither of you even had in your top.
No.
I think you rated it like 6th and 5th. So
I had him as like 5th in my mid laners.
Exactly,
Same
right?
for me.
So like this is where we're gonna hit some of these points where it's just like I've got players which I just think are better.
Yeah.
But overall, you've gone for Steel then, by the way. I'm kind of curious.
At number 5, nonetheless.
Yeah, so I rate Steel higher than Gang. Obviously, I decided to do a repeat jungler as a 5th laner before even going into any other role, before going back to any other role, or even giving support a chance. But then I did also give Reyna 7th place as well, so that was a bit of consolation for the supports. Steel, honestly, I do think he is just basically out of the top 4, which we all basically agree with. I actually think he's just secretly that good, and I think he's that important for DFM winning. Like, I genuinely think, honestly...
I can see in terms of the importance.
Honestly, I think without Steel in a lot of spots, okay, you could have had Boogie, probably would have won the game just as well, if not maybe more impressively. Don't get me wrong. But Steel with Ebby, and basically carrying Syros over the last few weeks, frankly, in my opinion. I think Syros has been the worst player of DFM, which is a weird spot to be in because this is world-class talent, right? So someone has to be the best, someone has to be the worst. And in my eyes, I think Steel has kind of stepped into the spot where maybe Syros got out of line, but Steel kind of makes up for it and at least gets the kill back on the other side a few times. And I just think Steel's playing really solidly at the moment and deserves it, for me, the recognition.
Okay, so the reason Steel didn't make my list, because I do think he's still a very good player. He's a detonation focused player. None of these players are bad. The reason he didn't make my top 10 is that I think that whereas last split, when we were casting the finals and the semi-finals and whatever and looking at this, it felt like Steel was the only jungler that could really impact the early game. That's no longer the case.
No, it's
not. A lot of junglers which are now kind of vying around him and just saying like, okay, right, we can kind of make sure certain lanes are ahead, and then we can go into the mid game with a certain advantage across there. DFM can no longer nullify lanes in the same way that they used to because Steel had such jungle advantage. I still think he's very good. Obviously, he has been playing solidly. The problem is there's a lot of X-Factor junglers out there now which are bringing something spicy into it.
True. I just think Steel personally is going to be able to capitalize on this. So you have a bit of this whole idea of like you can't teach an old dog new tricks. The problem is Steel isn't an old dog yet. Steel is just has been the best.
He's still in his prime.
He's been the best in the region. He's definitely faced people try and take him from his spot, and he's beaten them before. So this is just another season where, all right, got Boogie, got some competition now. All right, jungle's gotten spicy again. This is just a spot where I feel like Steel is probably going to thrive. And if he doesn't thrive, he basically becomes yesterday's news. Like, I'm sorry that it's such a knife edge kind of place.
Oh, but the story around Boogie is so huge, though, that it might just happen.
Yeah, but it has. But, like, if Steel doesn't step up, he will become a middle-of-the-pack jungler to then probably off DFM. And it's crazy to think that, but DFM have to have the best players because that's what they've done for the last like 2.5 years. They've had the best players.
That's the pressure of people like G2, of Fnatic, of TSM, of
Oh,
SKT,
don't talk about TSM, man.
of
don't.
RNG, of these guys who like
USG as well.
There is that, whereas these guys are like
USG.
We have seen like in past when rosters do come when when sort of expectations aren't met, people disappear. Like that's just the way it
Dynasties
is.
can't last forever.
No.
Yeah, even SKT showed that, right?
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. Season 5.
2 in a row, not 3.
Oh, they reached the finals to the third one, but
yeah.
But like that, yeah. But I mean, this is now an SKT that's very different. But this is the LJL podcast, so let's stop talking about Korea. Even though I would love to, that's going to be off-season content. Expect that, people. We are definitely going to be doing weird, random stuff. Yes, I see you highlighting Gadiadu, Alex. Go on.
I'm just thinking about what I'm going to say. So the highest player, which I haven't talked about, which is not on your guys' list, is Gadiadu. I talked about him a little bit in my mid lane power rankings. I think that this guy has been the most consistent member of Axis across their entire split.
Yeah, I can see that.
Obviously, I don't put much weight on the entirety of the split. Like I said, I do prefer current form. I think that this guy's had... I think there are some worries about him only playing Zoe and LeBlanc. I think he's shown that he can play some other stuff. He tried to play Ryze in the first few weeks, even though the team was kind of falling apart. I thought that he was
done as well.
Wait,
he had the Tristana game as well.
Sorry,
right?
sorry, Alex. I have to pick apart this statement you just said because I thought I was having a stroke. Did you say he was more consistent, but then you've put Hoglet at 5th?
Yeah, he's
I think
been...
Hoglet's been...
So Hoglet's just better, but Gadiadu's been...
I think Hoglet... Well, like I said, so this is what I'm saying. He is the most consistent member of Axis, but I don't care about the entire split as much as I do form coming into playoffs because particularly from Axis, because they are such a different team from the first 4 weeks, right? Particularly from them, it's more about their form coming into it, and I think that Hoglet has been tearing
Really
open the
good
map
the
in a
last
way
couple
compared
weeks,
to
yeah.
his role, which I think things that Gadiadu has competition for the likes of Pyrian, from the likes of
Arya,
and Seros, and all the other guys which are kind of coming up strong. I think Hoglet in himself has been playing. He's been outplaying a lot of people which are actually performing very well at the same time.
Sure.
And yeah, he's
been good. Yeah.
He played well versus DFM as well, right? He got 4 kills in the early game versus DFM. Gadiadu
3.
has like solo. Well, he was involved in 4, but like so Gadiadu has solo won them a lot of games in the last couple of weeks as well. Obviously I said like the LeBlanc game he had against V3, he had that fantastic pick in the mid lane which led through to loads more kills. It's like he has this LeBlanc build where he goes Ludens into Banshees and realizes as soon as he builds Banshees he can just jump into the enemy team and make some shit happen. And he's been doing that consistently every game. I'm like, wait, I mean, if this guy gets LeBlanc, he's gonna carry a game. So for me, he made it up to 7th, just behind Utapon, just ahead of Gang, so kind of splitting up that duo there. I'm very excited to see this guy in playoffs. I want to see him do it on some different champions as well if he's banned out, but yeah, we'll see where that goes.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, like, I will say, I've only got 1 mid laner in my list.
I have 3.
So then
Mid
I think
lane main.
So I probably ought to put this in there because actually I do think that that argument for Gadiadu makes a lot of sense to me. But when I did my position rankings, I guess, for mid, I had Seros in 2nd. And when Lexi said it, he said, yeah, but I think Seros has been the weakest member of DFM. And I went, well, yeah, I agree with that. And I still think Seros is the 2nd best mid in the league. And I was like, well, in that case, can I justify having
another mid laner? Yeah.
Another mid laner? And it's like, actually, Pyrian has been good. Gadiadu has been good. But my issue is partly that it's like what they looked really good on, and the ones where I've gone, damn son, have been the Zoe and LeBlanc. and it's like, well, anything else? Of like, not so much, and that kind of worries me. Like, and that kind of worries me a little coming into playoffs. I mean, the chances are they'll have other stuff as well, but from what I've seen, that's what I've got to work with, and that makes me an issue.
Quick spicy thing. Quick. Complete divergence from anything, but you guys reminded me of something just then. You did. So I've been scraping everything. Hopefully a new addition to our Discord over the next few weeks. We're going to have to do API scraping and random bot. Oh God, I'm not hopeful that someone out there can assist me.
Bot fiasco.
We are going to be able to have a channel where whenever a professional player in the LJL goes live, we'll be able to have their stream
a link to it will pop up
That would
in
be
our
really
Discord.
cool.
It'll be the only place that you'll be able to get the information the second, unless you've got a Twitter bot doing this exact same thing. But that's what we might have to do, is a Twitter bot. I don't know yet. Regardless, we'll figure that out. But Yutori Moashi, Unexpected Things, now played a bunch of games on stream with Lucian.
Okay, right.
Like, a lot of these pros are streaming
Interesting.
random stuff, and they're definitely trying other champions that we haven't
Oh, and
seen.
Yutori Miyashi is a good Lucian too.
Yeah, he
So,
is.
um,
Yeah, he is.
And
So-
as is Utapon.
You
so.
just hit that point for me, Initialize, when you said that, and like, oh, they're gonna play other champions. I'm like, oh,
Yeah,
I saw that
They
today.
better do. They better do. Tell you what, do you want to talk about your 7th place?
Oh, Reina.
MaskedSwan, yeah, because
try-
I've got that on my list as well, but you may as well because you got all yours up at 7th.
Okay, so Reina is in a weird spot, right? So 7th place is like, they're not terrible, but they're not the best.
Top 10 already is good.
Top 10,
Top 10 is very
top
good.
10 is very
between
good. That's just 2
teams.
teams basically compiled together. I've actually been super impressed with Reina's performance
Me
in the last
too.
few
So
weeks,
have I.
specifically. And it's a weird spot to be like, I think he's the second best support in the whole region. Now, I am support biased. Could a Corporal have made it onto my list over Utapon? I don't know. I really don't know. Probably 11th or 12th is Corporal for me.
Yeah.
But the thing is, I also rate Ninja and Apperman super highly.
Priorities. It's your priorities.
Oh,
This
it is.
where calls
Like,
them out.
I think Apperman... Well, I think Reina is just so important to V3 keep
Yes.
winning. And if they're going to keep winning, they need Reina to keep
I
playing
agree.
where he's been.
That's exactly why he's
Because
on my list.
if they
because of
don't,
that, yeah.
if Reina starts having a hiccup, if God forbid, touch wood, it doesn't happen, Reina has a hiccup bad playoff, it's all over for V3. Genuinely, seriously, I think if Reina has a bad week or a bad match, they actually lose the game through him.
So, I have a bit more hope in Archer, which is why he's on my list, but I understand the thought process.
It's very
Yeah, so
similar
here's-
kind of thought
yeah,
process,
yeah.
I think.
The
So-
bot, for me, it's just the bot lane, just the other bot laner.
So if I can add a little evidence to that claim
Go
as
for it.
well. So if we go way back to week 5, V3 went 1-1, and then they lost a game to Axis. And this was the one where Gadiadu was on LeBlanc and found his way
Oh, yeah.
behind people to get onto Archer. It was the Uanyan backdoor on the Camille.
Hmm.
A lot of good fun. It was when Axis got their first 2-0 week. It was, it was a good game, but
Was.
basically in that loss, this was 2 really clutch games from Reina. So in the game versus Axis, Reina was on Braum, and it was versus Hyde to Misfortune, and Archer.
I remember this, yeah.
The reason, the part of the reason, part of the reason why I thought Archer looked good was
Mhm.
primarily because Reina made him look
good,
good.
yeah.
He
Made
did.
him look good because Archer got caught in loads of Cataclysm, absolutely loads. And every time there was a Braum there with a door up that would block Misfortune's ultimate, without fail, Misfortune got some really meh ultimates because the Braum was there blocking it every single time, despite Archer being caught in really nasty positions between a Nautilus, between a Java, between the Misfortune. And it was kind of on Gadiadu finding some really clutch flanks onto Archer, which the Braum could do nothing about. And by the time he'd already burned all his stuff to save it from the other stuff.
Which is
But
why
I
he's in the
think-
top 10.
Right, exactly. Like I told you, so that was with one of those Luden's Banshees Fell games.
Yeah.
But that's the reason why I put Reina in and not Archer's. I think Archer's been good. Don't get me wrong, and I think I've got a lot of faith in that guy as a player. But I think Reina is genuinely the really good part of that duo.
Mm.
And in the second game that week, he went 2-0-12 on Thresh, and this was the game versus the Hawks, where there were the 2 mid lane tower dives.
That
Ramane
was
and
funny
Tussle,
as fuck.
where Reina got hooked into play, into lanterns that kept Archer alive when he
Reina
got
walked
they got
into
double kills
those
the first time.
queues. Like, I don't know
Oh,
what
man.
he was
and,
doing.
and then the second time round, Reina does like with a clutch stopwatch to turn around Tussle, going for a kill on him. Like,
oh, that
the
was
guy-
that was when he was on Nautilus, right? Wasn't that when?
No, he was on Thresh.
Oh,
so he was,
right, okay.
Archer was on the Misfortune, Reina was on Thresh. Tussle, though, was on the Lee Sin. It was Ramane on Azir. And, like, they tried so hard to get this duo, and Reina outplayed them
I'm just
real
thinking
hard
of-
alongside Archer.
I'm just thinking of a completely different game. That's my.
And this is kind of when V3 were turning on. And
Mhm.
part of the reason they were turning on was the fact that it wasn't just Boogie having a run over the early game. It was people like Reyna in the kind of the mid game making some really clutch mechanical plays to just outplay people trying to do things where Boogie wasn't, and then they turn it around. And I do think that V3 are really benefiting from precisely having Reyna and Boogie kind of hitting a lot of cylinders, right?
I would agree. Nymaera, what's Pyrion? Why Pyrion?
I also think in a lot of ways that pretty much the same reasons as Gadiato in a lot of ways, just to a lesser extent because I think that there are some better secondary carries on Sengoku. Pyrion has had some games where he has legitimately solo carried his games. We saw the game versus the Hawks when he was on LeBlanc. Massive team fight against them. He got his LeBlanc, he was jumping forward, he was jumping back, getting loads of... Again, kind of going for the Banshee as well, LeBlanc kind of thing, jumping in and all around the place. I just think that his laning mechanics have been really good recently. He's been teaming up with Blank really well. He had a bit of a duff game on the Pantheon alongside Blank in the last.
Yes, I remember.
But then obviously their last game was pretty good outside of that. I'm trying to remember which game that was actually. I don't have the score sheet up on front of me. That was against Burning Core when he played the Omnistone LeBlanc. Don't remind me. But he just looks really confident at this point. I think that confidence begets confidence. Pyrion and Blank will have been in these high pressure situations before.
They will have
been on the big teams. I think that goes a long way to going into any kind of playoff situation. It is a very unique flavor of tension when you've got the fan environment, all this stuff around the LJL, which is just this huge microcosm of stuff happening. I think he's in a good spot to do very well in this playoffs. I hope he has some stuff outside of his LeBlanc. If not, I think first pick LeBlanc is very fine for both Gadiato, Aria, and for Pyrion as well. I think that's genuinely a first pickable champion.
Yes.
So I've put him in at 9th.
That makes total
I mean,
sense.
my issue is he's defaulted behind those 2 picks to Oriana, which is fine, but she's a little bit more of a supportive
I'm very
pick.
happy. If he picks up Victor, I'm very happy.
Yeah. And so, I think Oriana's okay. I just don't think she's particularly a power pick at the minute. Right?
I think also if he picks up Syndra,
Yeah.
I think he'll be perfect. I honestly
He has played that in the past as well.
He
actually.
has, right? So I think he's honestly just kind of in the place, and this is perfect time for him, right? Prep time. This is where he can sit down, bash out 2 champions that he probably already knows how to play very well and far better than any of us will ever get.
He's been around for a while.
Exactly, and now he can just be like, I'm going to brush up on these few. Before you know it, basically going to probably be best in the league on those champions. And it's like, okay, sure, yeah, why not? And then just be tied for a few of the others. I want to do something. So,
Sure.
let's talk about a duo, Initialize. Let's do a duo together.
Let's do a duo, buddy. I think that's a good duo to talk about as well.
So I put Apperman as my top
did you
player.
now?
I did.
Oh, wow.
Did
Wow.
I think you've got someone that might duo with him a fair
Yeah,
amount.
like, I've got this guy called Blank who's quite famous. He's
Oh,
played over on this Korean team.
He used to be a
They're
pretty
quite
good
a
at
good
one,
team.
right?
They're quite a good
guys
team.
are
I think I have a
sweet as
world
fuck.
skin even.
Oh, he's got world
He's got-
skin. Nah,
I
stop
know.
bullshitting, man. Nah, he ain't
There's
got
a guy called Blank. You might have heard of him.
blank.
So,
Oh,
like,
I think I might have seen him on a world stream once upon a time, maybe.
I saw these guys like typing in the document thing that we've got up for the podcast, just like putting arrows towards their different players. I'm just like, what are you guys, and then like as soon as they started talking, I'm like, okay, they're doing a thing. I'm just gonna let them do it.
So
Go ahead,
Apperman
buddy.
and Blank are basically kind of a combination, and I think
Yeah,
what we've done is we've both put them in 8th place, weirdly enough. I think Apperman and Blank are kind of operating in similar space for both of us.
Yes.
They do different things in the games, obviously. They're very different players when it comes to the game, but they're operating kind of space in our lists in a similar way. For me, Apperman is kind of a way that Sengoku can win a game when they basically have already chucked everything at it, not worked. They're last like, all right, Apperman, you've been on your own for about 35 fucking minutes. Are you winning or you're not? And he's like, oh, I got their second tier 2 turret. And then they go, oh, okay, we'll play through Apperman. I think Blank does the exact same way, but through the early game for Sengoku. And I think they've got this lovely kind of, if Blank doesn't have it, maybe Apperman has it, or if Apperman doesn't have it, Blank probably has it. And I think it's this lovely kind of combination.
Whereas I thought it was Pyrion that had it, so
Yeah,
technically,
well,
I'm
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's not too far off, and I think there is something to that. I think for me, we've all had slightly different reads on why Sengoku Gaming have come online and hit second place in the way they have.
Oh, 100%.
I think
So,
all
so
of them have largely stepped up. But
the jungle main picked Blank, the mid lane picked Tyrion, and then the support main for some reason picked a top.
pick the top laner.
I don't think I'm gonna put their support in
yeah,
my top
but,
10
yeah.
personally.
I think Blank especially.
Sorry, Anti.
Yeah, Blank post about week 4 has looked pretty consistently great in the early games. He's looked a lot more like he knows what he's doing in the early games. He had very good reads on the pathing of people like Steel. So in the early game when they got the win over DFM, he managed to find 4 early kills on the Elise. He's found a lot of pressure in the early games. He's just kind of had a good read on the opposing junglers. I think he has been a large part of the reason why Sengoku Gaming get leads into their mid game. And while their mid games are still a little bit slow, I think their early games are not, and that's partly because I think Blank has been very, very good in that space.
No, I think Art's just. I think it's interesting that we all basically did the same sort of thing. We put a member of Sengoku that we all believe is part of their whole carry that isn't Yutori Muashi, because obviously he's very fucking important.
He's just so good.
He's
just so good.
But then we each decided on our favorite player for who's the best one that backs him up, and then we've gone.
That being said, like if Pyrion hadn't picked Omnisone on that one Blank game, he'd be like 3rd or something, you know.
Daggers wins the game, and you're still like, but
like, what are you gonna do with like phase rush Blanc? What are you gonna do with that?
I mean,
run
really fast, right? Like,
yes, and do nothing. Yeah, you get to run like rings around them and like.
I mean, that sounds pretty cool if it was me. I mean, I like the idea of running real fast. Maybe I'm gonna. Oh my god, I might play a game of solo queue.
Your cosplay for the episode 100, Sonic or Rammus.
Probably not. Probably it's gonna be like Ezreal or maybe. Oh no, it's a Felios. My girlfriend already decided this one.
My Chemical Bot Lane.
She actually already decided. She was like, wait a second.
Oh, you.
She was literally like, oh. I saw this new champion came out. You could cosplay them. I'm like, fuck. Yeah, okay, and then I'm like, show me it, because I'm like, maybe it's a random old skin or something, and she's just found it. Nope.
Nah.
Felios. Fuck.
These are like
full emo boy.
Back so I called you to the Moonlight Parade.
So a couple of years ago, I had blonde hair, and I could have pulled off a pretty decent Ezreal. So maybe I'll go back to that at some point.
Wigs are great.
So there are some very bad photos out of me with some really bad blonde hair at some point. Hopefully you don't find them.
I mean, cosplay wigs are fucking fire, mate. I had to at one point when my hair was blonde, because both Alex's obviously have had to go blonde. When my hair first went blonde and it was awful, I had to wear a wig to work for like 3 days. Fucking great, because I had cosplay wigs from back when I cosplayed. I was like, oh, this is fine. And everyone was like, wow, your hair looks amazing, except for like a few like women who obviously could tell, and like 2 gay guys, and they were like, no, it's a fucking wig. And they're like, everyone else was like, it's a wig, and I'm just like, holy shit, dense people. people who don't know about that world have no idea about it, do they? Damn. But back on topic, we've got another little duo. We've got another little duo. You go first, though, mate. You go first.
So the last higher ranked player that we've not talked about, in my 7th place, I had Rascal Jester's Art, who I think has been really, really damn good for the Jesters. He's been consistently putting out some pretty impressive performances. Even when the Jesters have been looking a little bit suspect, he's been finding ways to try and carry the team over the line, aggressively flashing forward to look and secure kills. His Ashe in particular was quite famous for that. And in later weeks, he's just been looking really consistent, alongside a lot of his other team members standing up, which would include your particular pick in night.
Yes, I want to just back you up first before I go any further. Again, remember, Art was top 3 for me as well from a carry perspective, so I do truly agree with you. He was just that integral. I now need to double check with oh yeah, no, Nymaera put him at 4th. Heretic. Just gonna throw those strong words out there.
But... I was kind of on the
Sinner!
I'm buying into the Archer hype, really. So like, I mean,
should be the Reyna hype, man.
If I'm very wrong, You can blame me. We'll come next to it, like 2 weeks later, they're going to be flaming the shit out of me. But for now, I'm going to be big brain. I'm like, I know the future.
It'd be big, but it'll be smooth. It's smooth brains.
Like I've taken out like, you know how you can like read the future from the entrails of stuff. You know, yeah. So I did that with like the entrails of a body pillow. Like I'm just making it slightly more weeby, just to make sure. I'm trying to get right into the LJL mindset. I'm just like, tear open the body pillow. I take out things. It's like, why does it look like a person holding a bow? It's Archer. It's a person. Obviously, Archer is going to be really good, and that's how I know. I actually don't do any research in the collection.
What you should have come up with is 999, because you need to hand yourself into the British police very quickly.
No, they won't take anyone at the moment in case of corona, right? So...
No, obviously that is just premonition showing that I should have done it in the first place.
I'm just saying, I was the guy who called Ebby as being as good as he was, so we already know he's got.
You do it one time on a good player, and you're like, I'm so smart. How silly would you have been if you had done this about Seros?
I still think Seros is pretty good.
But I think the mid laners in that role are now slightly better.
And one of those is?
Well, okay, no, he's still better than Ramune. Sorry. Yes, my one, thank you, Nymaera. Ninja! I think Ninja's fucking dope right now, but I think the problem for me saying Ninja is I'm repeating myself because I was the only one that put Ninja in my top 3, so I already had to I've already kind of justified why I think he's there, because I think Ninja is just playing out his fucking socks right now.
His playmaking's really good.
If he keeps playing like that, everybody's kind of should be worried, because he could legitimately be playing just below the level of Ardia, which if you're playing consistently at just below Ardia level, that's really fucking scary for basically every other mid laner.
The question is for me, can you do that through a best of 5? That's the question for me.
We'll leave that one for a discussion when we get onto playoffs, because I've already got that argument all set up in my brain, all nice and smooth brain, versus a very specific mid laner. So can we wait till then while I have my argument points?
Yeah.
Because if we don't, I'm fucked.
Yeah, no, I can see that. I think Ninja has got that kind of X factor of clutch and kind of playmaking ability, which can definitely win you games. And I think for Rascal Jester, that can be very important. So I can see just on a team importance standpoint why we put him in 9.
And Initialize, would you be very kind to finish up Art and then lead us in with your final player?
So I put Art up here, like for
7th as well.
Ninja. Yeah, exactly, because I think he's been a very
Ninja was 9th
carry. So because I think he's the other big playmaker in a lot of ways for Rascal Jester, and beyond that, I think he does it more consistently. With the way he's up there, and I think he's been Rascal the Jester's most consistent player, and with them up in 4th for good reason towards the end of it. In difficult matches when things have been really backs against the wall, I think Art has stepped up, and he's done it pretty much every day of the split. And then
he's been doing it since week 1, really.
Yeah. And that's a lot of points in my book. And like it's not just like you're good. It's not like he's just good. He's been actually great consistently, which is a good sign for me. And then for my last one, I think this is the last person. This is the last.
This is the last final person for us to discuss.
So yeah, in 10th, I have Axis' Corporal, who I think has genuinely been really good.
I want to put one thing here quickly. We did these lists before he joined our Discord.
Yeah, that's right.
I want to be one real fucking clear, because we've now got 2 different pros in our Discord, which is
I'll just be like a couple of weeks later, I'm gonna see like a narwhal plushie just enter the room. Like,
where did you get that?
Out of interest, where'd you get that?
And you're just like, nowhere. It didn't appear from anywhere, and then just always in the background, there's just a narwhal. It's like.
What are those DMs from Axis Management doing in your inventory?
Wait, if you're getting a free flight, I want a flight. Oh, I don't care about death anymore. If I can get a free flight back to Japan, I'll fucking take that shit.
Man. So I've got Corporal down in 10th. I think he's played consistently really well pretty much across the split again, even when they weren't looking good. And that for me is quite a big litmus test, is when your players look good, even when you're kind of in a bit of a difficult situation. And I think Corporal's done that pretty consistently. He's shown a lot of good playmaking. I think Hyde has been on the weaker side for our AD carries. Not that he hasn't actually. I think he's actually stepped up quite a lot over the last few weeks. He had a great misfortune.
He had
game
that.
as
He
well.
had a fantastic misfortune game.
Oh,
So actually,
yeah.
Arguably
so
the
even
best.
then,
odds.
actually, I think that's so actually at this point, I
That's
think
up,
even Hyde stepping up, right, which is great to see.
Mm.
But I do think that Corporal has been really good at laning with Hyde when he wasn't doing so well, and I think that's good sign on that front. And his playmaking and kind of his creative problem solving as well has been quite cool to watch. So things like there was that Thresh game where he was making these really clever plays, which I think really puts him up there. And when Axis has been winning, I think it's between Corporal and Hoglet when they started winning. It was these two kind of coming together and pulling off some really good engages and picks and stuff. And I think just for me, Corporal's just had that little X factor more for me to put him up in 10th.
Well, with that all said, that took us far longer than I expected it to do.
Wow,
I'll be totally honest with you both. We're currently 2 hours in, just for a bit of perspective. I thought it would take us an hour and a half an hour off. I'm pretty happy with myself for figuring out and predicting this. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to go on to our playoff predictions. This is going to be a spot where, more the other two, I'm not particularly confident in any of my picks for any of these matches personally at the moment. So what we're going to do here is Initia1ise and Nymaera are going to briefly go through the rounds as they currently are, and they're going to do their predictions. They're not going to go super in depth, but they're going to give you a bit of explanation on why they are choosing to do this. Now, this is individual picks, so please be aware there is going to be very limited kind of conversation will come after, and it's more just getting an insight into our play-by-play caster and our color caster's kind of mind into what's truly happening on there. So I'm going to ask if Nymaera, would you be willing to take the lead on this?
Okay, right. So we have 2 round 1 matches. They are V3 versus Axes and Rascal Jester versus CGA. I predict V3 are going to beat Axes 3-1, and this is going to be the really controversial one. I think CGA beat Rascal Jester 3-1.
Ooh, I think so. Okay, do you want to go further, Al? Or
I want to hear your prediction, and then we'll have a bit of a discourse about it.
So for round 1, this is sort of like we'll have the graphics up and around, but effectively V3 versus Axis. I think V3 win. I think it will be a 3-1. I agree. For match 2, I think, which is Rascal Jester CGA, I think the Jesters will win 3-2.
Okay. Right. So my reasoning for Axes, unfortunately, losing to V3. Well, no, my reasoning for Axes losing to V3 is that I think V3 can play through bot side against them pretty happily. I think that Boogie is the strongest jungler in the round 1 right here, so that means the Hoglet's impact will be nullified. And then I think that Galliardo, while he has been good, I think that Ace will be par for the course enough until the team fights start coming into fruition. Yeah. I just think that there's a lot of star power coming into its fruition on V3 right now.
Yeah, I kind of agree with you on those thoughts, because I think Paz has stepped up, and that gives him a bit of an advantage versus Uenyan at the minute. I also think that while I rate Galliardo over Ace fairly significantly, I don't think it's the level where they're going to be able to run that.
Over a best of 5, I don't think it'll hold out. I think I think they might get game 1, and then I think V3 will run back 3 games.
And I think the V3's kind of propensity to play fast, hard, and early has caught people like Axis off before. And I've seen them get run over, because actually, when Axis have lost against people like V3 and DFM, they've kind of just been a touch behind the beat, and I think V3 do that very, very well, is to play fast, hard, early. And if Ace is on picks like Nocturne, and even if he's not laning that well, can get out of lane and just dive a turret in bot lane, then I think there's going to be serious trouble for Axis on that front.
Interesting, because when Axis last played V3, they won.
They did, yeah, but I think
and they lost in only round 1. They lost in week 1 in spectacular fashion.
Yeah,
I think it's interesting perspectives there.
I think
largely
largely
to be a lot closer.
I think for me, just Reyna and Archer are a step above in the 2v2 against Hyde and Corporal, and we saw what happens when Hyde and Corporal can fall behind in the 2v2. We've seen it a couple of times throughout the split, and we've kind of seen the same thing with Initia1ise a little bit in terms of his laning, right? I think his mid and late game awareness of the map is pretty good.
Yeah.
I think Paz has actually been stepping up. I think the key picks for me in this series are going to be Aatrox and LeBlanc.
Yeah.
And then junglers will just go wild, really. I think that if Paz manages to... I think if Initia1ise gets LeBlanc and manages to get through to the team fights, that's fine. If he ends up picking stuff which isn't team fight worthy, they could be in some really big issues.
Yeah.
Okay, and
I
Rascal
agree.
just CGA.
Okay,
What's
so
up?
yeah, what
You guys disagree, so I'm
I
interested in why.
do.
What did you pick, Sam?
I think Jess win 3-2, but this is the one match where I'm going, this is going to be hard to read.
I think it's 3-1 CGA. And I think that CGA have lucked out. I think so. V3 had the choice of who they wanted to face. They could have faced either Axis or CGA. They chose to face Axis, so CGA are left with Rascal Jesters. The reason this is good for Rascal Jester is that that Yoshi doesn't have to play against Boogie, and that would have been such a jungle difference. I'm not sure CGA could have fought back against that. I set up this narrative way back in like week 2, 3 or something like that when CGA were on a bit of a hot streak and they played against V3 who'd been going 1-1 all this time. I said that Boogie was playing really well. He could definitely make a dent in the jungle matchup and then they could win through that. I think that in this game, Yoshi, after having a good tiebreaker as well, I think he will be fine versus Hatchmetro. I don't think he will win, but I don't think he will be put under such a microscope. And Ninja, while he does have a lot of very interesting picks which can team fight very well, I think that Aria isn't often pressured enough in lane to affect his team fighting presence. Obviously, there was the huge game that they lost in the last couple of weeks. I think that over a best of 5, you can't do that late game team fight 3 times against CGA. That's what I'm banking on. I think that CGA will be able to get to late game enough with Aria winning team fights, and now he's gone back to the Vladimir. That is terrifying because I don't think Aria is easy to remove from the mid lane on that pick.
Yeah, so this is why I find this one a bit difficult to predict, because it could be that Aria turns up and just smashes. Like, there is that potential where you're just like, yeah, 1v9, I win this for you. And I could see that. That's the reason partly because I'm going for a 3-2. I'm going with the Jesters on more of a meta point, or a meta narrative point rather than just straight meta. And I think the Jesters have just got this wealth of experience that I think will really serve them well in the clutch. And I think CGA have got some newer players. Grendel and Yoshi, I have already seen them struggle a little bit. And on playoffs, I am always nervous about rookies. And both of these guys could end up suffering. And I think Hatchemetcha and Cog as well, actually, have looked a lot better in the last couple of weeks. And Hatchemetcha in particular went deathless on Rek'Sai against some very tough matchups and was counter-ganking really hard. So if that happens, and what actually ends up happening is that Aria is kind of isolated in the mid lane, can't get the leads he's used to, and Hatchemetcha is, more than enough to deal with Yoshi, I could see the Jesters' experience really winning out and clutching them through this, and maybe Aria as well kind of just misstepping a little in the late games and choking just a touch in those late game fights.
However, so in the tiebreaker, I think that Grendel played really well on his Rakan. I think that it was a really high pressure matchup. You could see the relief on their faces as they won that. So that if we're talking about like the whole pressure and the experience thing, I think that CJ have already been a bit forged in the crucible of that tense situation. And Grendel picking up a new champion in the Rakan. Xayah Rakan also very safe. I think it's very good to engage as well. I think if they stick to those kind of champions and they do get like blue side and they manage to pick Xayah Rakan, I think that CJ are going to be really strong because Gango, as we were saying, really good on this Xayah as well.
So, but playoffs are completely different.
So I want to ask a question. I want to ask a question about that one more specific, because I do sadly think you both are right. V3 are probably going to be Axis. I think actually sadly it could be a 3-0.
It could well be.
This is a V3 that's literally on a 5-win streak and looks almost unbeatable.
Looking very good.
So but then Axis have been willing to prove us wrong countless times. So
they have.
Do
and
it again.
Prep really well.
Do it again. I'm really interested why you both think it's going to be so close. I thought it was just going to be Rascal just to stomp CGA.
I think that the tiebreaker and the way they drafted
That's
in
one match. They've literally played 14 other matches and then basically punted 9 of them.
but when push came to shove, they came out with a huge game, and the pieces all fit together. I am kind of.
I just don't think prep against Burning Core is that big of a deal. We've seen Burning Core get aced by other teams, V3 included. So I don't think I'd put as much equity as you have into that match. Yeah. Personally, even though it was basically the most important match of the whole of all of it, right?
And this is why it's controversial, right? I think that particularly for me, it's the draft. I think that they've managed to find champions that they clicked on. I think for the last couple of weeks,
Rascal Jesters are the drafting like machines because they can put anybody in awkward spots.
They can. Yeah, but this is the thing, right? I think that Rascal Jester can sometimes draft like gods and sometimes really have some question marks there as well.
But they fixed those question marks, right?
Can I just...
But have they?
I mean, over the last 3 weeks they had.
Yeah, I think I will say
2-0 in the last week, remember?
Yeah, they look good in their. I think they look very good in day 7. I think day 6 they were a little bit tougher. But that's my point, right? I think Rascal Jester
3-1 across a super week is very good.
I think Rascal Jester have won a lot of games through a lot of good grit, and I also think that the Jesters are quite a smart team in a lot of ways. And whereas I think CGA are categorically
CGA are just relying on one player in my eyes.
And I also
now, if they go towards Zyrakan, and if they realize Zyrakan is a really good priority, now that Ornn has been nerfed as well, and is one of the reasons that Zyrakan is played less, I think that we can go back to the 2-carry style of Aria and Gango.
Yeah,
but maybe. I think that's just such an exploitable thing. I think Rascal Jester could capitalize on that.
Yeah, I agree. That's the reason I've got them going forward.
It's a could, right? Who knows?
That's why it's always a prediction, right?
And there's 2 other things I want. I brought up the rookie thing, and you said, well, they did it right in the tiebreaker match. Tiebreaker is not playoffs.
No.
Playoffs is a massive deal, and we have there have
also they could go in confidently thinking that they're probably better outside of top lane.
Yeah, and there are exceptionally few rookies that have won splits or done well in playoffs.
Gotta be Faker.
Split. Apart from season 3 SKT, one of the only exceptions. They went on to win bloody Worlds, and even then in their first split they didn't win.
Burger King's done it.
There was Origins first split.
Origins, Origins was so
then
good.
Niels played really well.
Moscow 5 as well on their breakout.
Yeah, exactly. So, but there are very few.
Yeah, very
few.
Course,
so even SKT in the spring split didn't win, right? That's kind of the way. And I think CJ in a similar problem.
Yeah, that's the.
And I also think that Aria in playoffs or in some clutch games has actually looked a little quiet sometimes. In the V3 last spring, he looked pretty good. In the finals, he was pretty damn quiet.
Yeah.
And I rate this player super highly, but I have also had some concerns about the way he plays late games and getting going a little hard for things. And I sometimes think that
they lost them against the last time they played against Rascal Jesters.
Yeah.
They just hook, ult, core, we win now.
Yeah, and I think there's also this issue for CGA where potentially if Aria tries to overplay because he's got this pressure on him, they could get punished. And I think that's probably what will happen.
I think the other thing is that Nap had a really good... Nap has also been quietly chugging along in the background as well. I think that if... I think obviously Yoshi is a bit of a question mark, but I think Hachimecha won't be able to destroy him in the way that we've seen him fall down.
I mean, granted, if Hachimecha plays like he did week 7 in playoffs, Yoshi's fucked.
Yeah, it could be a problem.
Only Boogie could stand up to him, frankly.
Yeah,
but then that's a Hachimecha on God week, so.
I think particularly for me, if they prioritize Vladimir Zyrakan, I think CGA can have they can definitely make a real dent. And then if they have to start banning those things, then you start letting through Aria's Rule Blanc, you start letting through his Zoe. And if that starts happening, there are only so many things you can ban, and normally the people have been banning out Gango. If this then allows Aria to get onto his S tier carries, Rascal Jester could be some real trouble here because they even though they have technical counter picks, it doesn't stop people. It doesn't take away people's really strong picks.
Yeah. Put it this way, I wouldn't be surprised. I wouldn't be surprised if CGA managed to get it all the way to finals off some amazing clutch play from Gango and Aria. I also would not be surprised to see them go 0-3 in round 1 and just bomb out. They're such a wild card. In fact, I wanted to double check: is round 1 a best of 5 or a best of 3?
I have been told that it is a best of 5. I was under the impression it was a best of 3, but I've been told it's a best of 5.
There you go.
Yeah. Something like that. Anyway, that is what we are being told. So, I assumed that playoffs are going to be best of 5 unless it was the LCK does the wild card match where it's a best of 3 and then goes into best of 5. But it's not on the wiki, so we'll just cast
There's nothing on the
there.
wiki, and trust me, I have delved into random pages with Google Translate going to try and find this shit out, but no one posts a lot of stuff, so we're getting best of 5s. I thought it was going to be best of 3s till round 3, but apparently not. So
There we go.
Because round 3 would make sense. Round 3, lose
well,
it.
no, I like hold the playoffs to be best of 5. I think that's a more fair, competitive way to do it.
Nah, best of 3s. Do it. Just
No, but that
get
best
it
of
over
5
with.
is yeah, most of the playoffs.
But
across the world
it's
tend
at
to be best of 5.
It's like at 4 a.m. our time, and then it's 10 a.m. match 2. So that sounds like it's probably 5-game match.
Yeah,
We
so
have
it'll
no, but
be fun.
we have seen 2 semifinals played in the same day though. We have seen that before. We've seen also like a semifinal. Yeah, we've seen stuff like that happen before.
Well, yeah, it's
and
it's
also
not
the LJL
crazy.
schedule, as we know, is just a really
It's insane.
stupid
Yeah.
thing.
We will.
Wait, wasn't the last finals like semifinals immediately into finals?
Was it?
Was it
Wow,
on a
man.
Saturday or something like
Yeah,
that? I'm
it
trying
was
to remember.
Saturday, Sunday. That was it.
Like something like that. It's pretty
CGA, I
crazy.
think.
Ma-
The CGA
Mastered.
made finals, right? Or was it
It was
V3?
V3.
So V3 had a
versus CGA.
day to prep for DFM.
Yeah, that is crazy.
Fun.
And yeah, I think more interesting for me is going to be after we see the first matches play, how people prep, knowing how they played the first round. So like we'll see how it goes on with that. I think in a theoretical matchup between like V3 and CGA, that could be, from my prediction, that could be
a lot of
absolute
fun, and
fireworks.
it's a rematch of last year.
It would
as well.
be. It
The
would
other
be.
thing,
Yeah.
though, is Axis management quite clearly is working very closely with the players because they all came out and celebrated with the players. You can see it didn't just mean a lot to the players, and the managers were like, "Oh yes, that's good, as I expected." Like, no, this was like, "Holy fucking shit, I'm crying with you, man. This is fucking dope."
Yeah, it was great stories.
They're probably gonna have, if anything, right, the best prep because that seems like a full
Their coaching staff
team
I've praised a lot.
who is
they've been
all on
really,
the same
really
page
good.
and everybody is. They give the outside perspective that they're all on it, right?
Yeah.
Do you
And,
think they could ever beat V3?
Yes.
Yeah, I think absolutely could. But I think
How?
the game has to go a very certain way. I think that Unyan has to be sheltered a little bit versus Paz. I think that Paz is coming into this pretty hot. I think that if he's playing Camille for like a best of 5, I think that he's going to lose a lot of laning stuff, particularly because Paz has shown that he can win stuff like Aatrox versus Camille in the past. I think that Gadiadio has to get his power picks. I think he has to get Zoe and LeBlanc. I think that Hyde and Corporal need to find themselves in a solid 2v2. They can't be picking Ezreal Yumi versus double poke and then dying to that. And I think that Hoglet needs to really run over the early game, which against Boogie, it's hard. Boogie's gonna get pretty crazy. You need to hope he picks Trundle.
Yeah. So this is where I have. So
Okay,
this is
that's
how
our
I
hope.
see-
All right.
Yeah.
No
So
Lee
the-
Sin,
the-
only
I-
Trundle.
Yeah. I kind of agree. I think I have a slightly different take on it than Nymaera, in that actually what I want to see is specifically Corporal and Hoglet working together to track Boogie's early game. If you take control of the vision and Boogie's ganks and pathing is all kind of accounted for, then maybe you have a lot more options, because Boogie from Even has looked to be a very different beast to Boogie from Ahead, and I think that is a way in potentially as well.
Oh, also, I do remember briefly now that, I mean, Hyde and Corporal had a really good Xayah Yumi game as well.
Yeah.
I think Hyde, if he's on, I think Xayah could be like the playoffs pick for me. I think that Gango's looked really good on it. I think Hyde has had some good games on it too. Obviously, we've had like Yutori Miyashi popping off on it a couple of times as well. I think if players start playing around this and it allows their supports to be a bit more aggressive because there's AD carry can peel a bit, we might see support difference become a really big thing. And particularly, Reyna, I think, had the really good game on Thresh when Archer was on the Xayah as well. I'm really looking. I think that this pick, from my point of view, and from my own little league pundit point of view, Xayah could be the pick to watch.
Yep.
I wonder if the teams have any similar views to that. Maybe they have like some. Maybe they think that certain picks are really good against them.
Maybe wondering about maybe Kai'Sa coming back as well with her buffs. I could see a little bit of that being a little bit more prioritized too.
So 10.5, Kai'Sa gets some buffs to her well, she gets buffs to like her AP build, which like so if you go like Muramana into like Rageblade Nashes and then go like AP after that, you do get a pretty great build on that. I don't know if she'll be back. I think Nico could come back, which is scary for Ceros.
That's a big one.
I think the big thing for me is like Set and Ornn both took nerfs, and a lot of our top laners use them as crutches. I think Aatrox is going to be really big because of that, because the other two have kind of fallen down.
Yeah, they were two of the ones that were actually good matches into him, roughly speaking.
Yeah, exactly. So I think Aatrox is going to be huge.
Maybe as well, because I think actually Mordekaiser
fuck Mordekaiser. I don't want to say Mordekaiser. Fuck Mordekaiser.
Yeah, okay.
I think Aatrox is the big pick for me. But yeah, no. So that's kind of my take on round 1. I think.
Yeah. And it's happening this Saturday as well. So it's happening in less than a week. Be there.
It'll be very, very soon. I do want to briefly, only very briefly, as I said, we're not going to cover it super much, but
round 2, DFM Sengoku. I want a very
Yeah.
short, quick 1-minute thought from either of you, and then we'll have some closing thoughts in regards to playoffs.
Give you a 1-sentence one.
Sure, that's just as good.
DFM 3-0.
Yeah, I completely agree because it'll be DFM 3-0, and I'll tell you why. It's because DFM, with their coaching staff, with prep team, are terrifying.
Yeah.
We saw we've seen what they've done in terms of their macro game over the last few weeks. I think they're just going to be very good.
I think that strategy diversity is way too large. I think Sengoku work off of certain things and they try and play a similar style with their stuff. I think DFM work so many different styles. If one thing doesn't work in a best of 5, they'll adapt better. I think Sengoku won't be able to do that.
I think Appleman won't be a win condition because of Ebby. That's a problem. I will say, I can see a world in which Sengoku Gaming, if they can find
Win away through
winning 2v2,
Well, yeah, winning mid 2v2 and do what they did the time they won against DFM the first time, which was basically stall steals level 1 and mean that the 2v2 in mid was always kind of a 2v1, and then build off of that. I can see a world where they pick up a game or two. I don't really see a world where they win at the minute because, spoiler, I think DFM win this split.
Yeah, I think that maybe between the two, because obviously there's a chance that Sengoku play DFM 2 times. I think that they might be closer in the second one if they do end up making it there again. It's a little bit hard to theory craft that. The thing is, if DFM win in really dominant fashion, the other team hasn't showed many cards, and that means that they can kind of adapt and prep it. And that's kind of what I was saying, like in our players, like our top 10 and stuff, and saying like, well, Steel might be a bit exposed and stuff like that. I think that the team meeting them in the finals will have more relevant data points than they will against their challenger, in my eyes.
Yeah.
Huh. I disagree strongly with both of you.
Ooh.
I think it's going to be 3-2.
Okay. You think Sengoku are going to be that close?
Genuinely, I think, and I don't even think Sengoku are going to have to reveal their whole hand, and I don't think DFM.
You think Sengoku?
I don't think either team's going to reveal their whole hand. I think this is going to be two.
Oh, maybe. Yeah.
I think it's going to be two teams who don't want to show everything until they have to. I think Sengoku are going to lean their hand a little bit more, but I think DFM are just going to squeak it out with maybe showing one extra new thing that Sengoku and everyone else wasn't expecting. Maybe it's a blast from the past with that Nico. Who knows? Who knows? I think though it's going to be a 5-game series where two teams,
it could be a storm.
Where 2 games are where it's just 2 teams who are like, I don't want to show everything, so I'm going to show you what I've already shown you. Well, I don't want to show you anything because I don't want to show you. And it's just 2 teams going, all right, I'll take this one, you take the next one. Yeah, me too. And then it's
like the LJL Fnatic versus G2.
Yeah.
Both series go 5 games.
Yeah.
And then we get a repeat, and I would not be surprised also for a repeat in the finals.
Yeah. So as a bit of context, guys, it's not a straight quarters, semis, finals. We have round 1 is kind of our lower 4 teams. Round 2 is the winners of those of round 1, and then round 2, and also our first and second teams, DFM and.
They have like a juggernaut match.
And what it means is it's a little bit like the LEC at the minute.
Did I keep calling it on yesterday last week's
juggernaut
podcast?
Match, I think.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, because that's apparently the term.
Yeah. There you go. So it's a juggernaut match, effectively. And what it means is that the winner goes straight to the finals. The loser gets a second chance at life. They go down to basically play a semis with the other winner.
It's a slightly different two-way double elimination.
Yeah, it's basically the lower 4 teams have to run up the. They're already in their losers finals. They're already in the losers bracket. Whereas Sengoku and DFM basically begin and win.
An extra life.
Yeah, they have 2 lives, and they get to basically go into losers finals. Yeah. For their chance to get into the grand finals, whereas every other team does not have that option. They have to win out, and for them to make it and to win the LJL and go to MSI for V3, Axis, Rascal Jester, and CGA, if they, Crest Gaming Act, rather, I said the full names of everyone else, everybody else, they get it too. If they want to make their way all the way to MSI, it's going to take them 1, 2, 3, 4 wins in a row. Best of 5 series.
That's huge.
Now, there is that huge thing, whereas between round 2 and round 3, there's a month.
Yeah,
so it's not going to seem like such a long thing, where if it was week after week after week after week, where you would be like, oh man, this is tough. You get a month.
Yeah, they'll have to run the Royal Road, you know. It's gonna be crazy. There's always a little bit of an argument with this when we come in talking about gauntlet systems. Obviously, the LCK being the big one, is that if you have a team waiting in the finals, they will get less practice than the teams that have come through the lower brackets.
Or less stage time.
Less stage time. Yeah. So V3, if they were gonna go for this, or Axis, or CGA, or Rascal Jester as well, no, they're gonna have a lot of varied practice. The question is, are they showing too much of their hand? I think Rascal Jesters, if they did that, they have so many picks, maybe they don't. Maybe someone like V3, which has played a particular style, maybe they do. Maybe this, there are certain teams where this would work out more in favor.
I don't think Axis has even had an opportunity to show their hand yet.
No, I don't think so either. I think
so. Quick note: I think CGA has played their full hand already.
It depends if Aria's got any more random shit.
He's already played
I think Aria has already played so much, and teams have already started to figure out ways in the split how to beat him, or how to basically nullify him to an extent.
Just make the game not about him most of the time.
Yeah.
So
and that is doable.
Yeah, they can be like, it's fine. He's 5-1. We can just not play against him, and we'll win. And then that happened a lot.
Yeah, I think that Nap, he's playing very similar champions. I think the one curveball is that if Nap starts playing Shen again, I think that will be a curveball.
Yeah, sure.
And then you have to develop entirely different styles around that. Teams will have to scout that out pretty well. I think that if Grendel starts picking up new champions, then we could start seeing some interesting stuff. If he starts picking up the Rakan,
he has played a Rakan and looked okay on it.
On the tiebreaker, that's what he picked up, and actually he looked way better than his Nautilus. And maybe that's because actually Rakan is one of the better champions to survive on. If he ends up picking Morgana or something,
I think it's really hard to fucking die on Nautilus personally as a support main that's played a lot of my season on him.
There's something about that, but also particularly like throughout Pro League history, Nautilus has been the champion that if he does go in and he's behind, he does die because he's not actually a full tank. Support tanks are tankier than they ever been before, and we do see that if you are on the front foot in a team fight, Nautilus becomes
is undiable.
Yeah, and we have had that issue with Grendel where he doesn't always know whether an engage is a good engage, and we have seen Nautiluses go diving in and be like, team, and it's like 1v5. After Shock runs out, it's like, well, I'm level 7 and you're level 12. I guess this is it.
Like, and then he does it again.
He does it again and does it.
And then the lead that Arya had suddenly is nullified.
That's the one.
And it's like, oops. I think the other thing that's really awkward is we've talked so highly of him. So highly. He was my number 2 and both of yours number 1. How much more does Boogie have to give?
How much has he got left in the tank?
Yeah.
Does he have anything else? Yeah.
Can he be? If they can beat Axis, I don't think Axis are going to be a pushover. I don't think so. So how much are V3 going to have to show against Axis? If they have to show a lot against Axis, God bless them if they make it through Axis. How the fuck are they going to be able to beat either CGA or Rascal Jester with a hand probably forced to be shown by Axis, who are probably coming out with their own stuff as well?
Yeah, I think that Boogie actually hasn't... I was wondering if he had enough champions that he's shown stuff on, but actually his Lee Sin's been really good, his Elise has been excellent, his Echo's been excellent. I think that Boogie will be fine on those 3 champions against all comers.
He's a good Gragas too.
He's a very good Gragas too, yeah, and we've seen that in a couple of his games. I am worried about Ace. I think if you ban out Ace, because this LeBlanc looked really good. His Nocturne really works with the Echo. I don't think it works with everything else, so that's a very situational.
It worked with an Elise.
It's not the same long range engage. Not really. Because you want to fear into the parallel conversions and have like this crazy dive combo. So I'm worried that if Boogie doesn't have enough people to play around even when he's on his power picks, like, what happens then? For me, it's not
He's
about...
got to try and do his Lee Sin 801.
I mean, exactly. He's got to do that. He has to do that.
But you can't do that realistically in a best of series.
So, like,
no, not 3 games in a row. No.
I think the Nocturne will be a little bit better than you think it's always, because, Sengoku Gaming, when they won with the Nocturne, it was blank on Elise. Well, it was blank on Elise again. So I think there is the tower dive combo if they can find something. Maybe a Rek'Sai as well, but I agree, the Echo is the better.
It's just that both times V3 have run it's been with an Echo. They've not thought about it any time else.
Yeah, I mean, Sengoku, we've seen it elsewhere with Elise and stuff, is basically what I was... So, like, there is some room maybe for using it elsewhere, but I agree the Echo is the better combo. I think, probably. Even if Elise is kind of the tower dive queen. I mean, we haven't seen Boogie play something like a Talia. I wouldn't be surprised to see him go towards that. I could see him on both of those.
That's what I'm wondering. I'm wondering if Kiana's going to come out from him at some point.
Do we know if he's played those in the past?
He's not played it this split. It's just that Boogie's a talented jungler who likes playing high damage champions. And we've seen a lot of people pull it out first time this split. I think Blank hadn't played it before, and he pulled it out.
Yeah, he looked good on a Kiana. He did look.
I'm trying to remember if he played it last year. Don't think
Steel played a good Kiana
Steel,
as well.
Yeah. So that's why I'm like, maybe Boogie goes. And also, they have time to prep right now. They do.
Yeah. So, yeah. How deep do you think V3 can go?
I think they could. I think they can make it to finals. I do think that. I think that they need.
Do you think they will?
Do I think they will? No. I think when they come up against Sengoku, I think in a best of 5, Sengoku are going to be probably outlast them.
Kind of agree. I think.
And that's assuming that Sengoku lose in that thing against them. Assuming the DFM win. I think when they come against the loser of DFM Sengoku, if they make it that fast, that's round 3. And even then, that's a lot of conditional stuff, because I think there is a chance they'd lose against CGA or Rascal Jester.
Yeah, there's a chance they lose against Axis.
And there's a lose against, there's a chance. There is a non-insignificant chance. So that means a significant chance that they lose against pretty much anyone else in the bracket.
So,
but that's based on so many different things.
So I want to just go back to Boogie. I know we keep talking about this man, but I want to go back because I just decided to go quickly through his career and just have a quick look at the champions that he's played.
Do tell.
So I'm going to more lean to 2019 as that has a bit more relevance to current meta stuff. I think 2018 is starting to get into weirder territory.
Yeah, maybe.
But I mean, it's got at least certain champions we have been talking about, or at least seeing. Talia, he has played in the past, and he has played multiple games across different, both LMS, both spring and summer. So definitely a champion in his back pocket. His most played champion in both spring and summer, which is a champion we haven't seen him play once yet. J4, which is a pick that everybody else is playing. He hasn't played once yet in the LJL. Another champion which he has 100% win rate in spring. And then only played it once and lost, but I don't know how much equity I'm putting in that because he only had 7k gold and it looks like it was a very quick stomp. He lost. It was Nocturne. He basically destroyed on it in spring playoffs, went 3-0, went 4-0 on it in spring split. Only played it once and didn't play it again in summer, but obviously Nocturne is kind of back on the menu now.
Flex pick.
Evelyn is another pick of his, which is in his back pocket.
Can I throw a little bit of something out there about the Evelyn specifically?
Karthus as well,
Karthus is...
Echo's brand new to his champion pool also, may I add.
Yeah.
He didn't play it in 2018 or 2019.
So, I wouldn't entirely be surprised to see a little bit of Evelyn. So this is a bit of insider info from Maxlaw, who was basically saying he reckons that Evelyn is potentially quite a good pick into some of the tankier junglers. So if someone picks Sejuani, like an Evelyn... Evelyn is a really good pick into that, potentially. So this was over on Maxwell's stream a week or 2 ago. He reckons that's a pretty good opportunity. And she scales really well, has a lot of damage. The invisibility can be very oppressive, and you can really carry off her.
It's also your main.
One of them, at least being the other one. I have a thing for women that murder people, apparently. That's probably not a great sign.
Never introduced me to
the Christian boy that likes Yandere girls.
Christian boy.
The pure Christian boy that likes Yandere murdering psychopaths. Wow, that explains so much.
Favorite anime is Mirai Nikki, right?
Yeah, like
good fucking anime.
I literally.
Oh no! I have problems with that anime. I think it's actually pretty
good. We'll have to set up an anime podcast at some point and discuss that.
We have an off season for this. So there is another champion which we haven't mentioned, is the Xin Zhao.
Yes.
He played that at MSI and won 2 games in the group stage with that. This guy is actually, and this is an early pressure jungler, which we've seen players like Once do very well on, right?
Yeah.
We even saw Tussle win some really good games on that. I think that could be a back pocket pick. It really does screw over lanes. Imagine, so you know what I kind of painted the story of, well, what happens if Uenyan or like Hyde and Corporal fall behind in lane? Imagine that with like a Xin Zhao who is really good at doing that. Really good at doing that. That could be the opening for them in that matchup specifically.
Yeah. So
I think what this has just said, you can't ban out Boogie.
I don't think so.
I don't think so. Because now Echo is in his back pocket. That's a new pick just for the LJL, and he had a 21 KDA. What?
So the answer to how much more has he got in the tank? Potentially quite a lot.
Yes. Potentially a bit. Particularly because like most junglers are picked first round right now. They're picked within your first 3 picks. You normally pick out, unless you're going to pick out like your safe top laner, and then you start going to junglers are often picked alongside your AD carry as
But
well,
now they can pick something like a Nocturne, and they're just like, oh well, that's mid, and then it's like, no, it's Boogie, and
the
they
problem
just
with
go,
Nocturne is
oh
that
fuck.
You can pick anti-dive versus Nocturne pretty well and play the game a bit differently because
Yeah, but if they assume it's a Nocturne mid, it's way harder for the drafts, right? Only
Sure,
someone like
is.
Rascal Jesters, in my eyes, I think can
Braum.
actually kind of.
Yeah,
Be-
if you pick like
pick
Tarek,
around
Tom
that.
Kench, Braum, then the AD carry doesn't die. And if you're grouped up for an objective, Nocturne finds it really hard to do stuff. And LJL, it still loves playing around objectives, even though it is starting to. It just loves playing around dragons and stuff, and Rift Herald and all the other stuff. It's like if you don't set up particularly well for that, and I think V3 have been doing better than that. Nocturne can have a blunted impact. That's why it's good to have a diving buddy and something like the Echo and do both. Technically, it's a flex pick between both roles. That'd be fun.
Yeah.
But...
I mean, once 10.6 comes in, Twisted Fate buffs.
Oh god,
That's so stupid. They shouldn't be coming through. They shouldn't.
I mean, it doesn't
Strong
affect his
opinions
gold card.
for me.
It doesn't affect his gold card, so I think that's fine.
I will say, I think if you want to target V3, how much more has Boogie got in the tank? Probably quite a lot. How much more does Ace or Paz have in the champion pool tank?
Paz is so low.
I'm not so sure, right? I mean, we know Paz plays things like Camille. We've seen him on that before. But actually, if you kind of know what he's practiced on right now, and you know what Ace is good and practiced on, and specifically that is LeBlanc, he looks good on. We've seen it. The team comp Nocturne look really good.
I really like his LeBlanc. In fact.
Yeah,
I think it's really good.
his Zoe and Jace are serviceable, but that's kind of it. And if that's what you're forcing him onto, is serviceable, I can see that being a way in.
I think, Paz is in a weird spot right now. I really don't know where I think I put. Like sometimes I think
put him up pretty high.
I think Paz is either really, really fucking good or really, really fucking middle of the road. And like I think part of it for him is just like a thing of the day. Which Paz is woke up today? Which Paz is playing on the stage? Because sometimes Paz could be arguably second best top laner in the world. In the LJL rather, not the world. LJL, like legit could be the second best. Other times I'm like, I think he's fifth. And it's really weird. I sometimes I'm really impressed with his level of play, and sometimes I'm just not so much.
So I think this split he has more people to play around than he did. Well, he had Utori Miyashi last split, but then that was Utori Miyashi playing a lot of Xayah, which can't be a front foot very often, whereas Boogie is always the first person going in. Paz doesn't have to be the initial engage. So I think that this split, Paz has a bit more room to kind of explore what he's doing in the game. So I think when he comes into the higher pressure matches, I think he will be able to kind of run into them and kind of go with the flow a bit more as he's been doing in the last couple of weeks, and kind of be more like the secondary team fight carry rather than like the first initiator. We saw that on his Aatrox versus DFM and the like.
Complete divergence, because I think we've kind of gotten to the end of the point with our predictions for the spring split playoffs. I think I'm correct in saying that for you both.
Yeah, I will say. I think. What do you think your final matchup's going to be, Nymaera? That's the one thing I'll call you out on.
Okay, so my tentative play prediction is V3 beating Axis, CJ beating Rascal Jester, which leaves us with V3 CJ. I think it's going to go 3-2 V3 if that happens. I think it's going to be really close, but I think that'll happen. And then they're going to face Sengoku. Sengoku are going to beat V3 3-2, and then I think it's going to be DFM winning 3-2 in the finals
Against
Sengoku.
I mostly agree with you. I think I'm in a very similar situation. I think it'll be the Jesters beating CGA though, and it'll be V3 versus CGA in the match 2.
You mean the Jesters versus V3?
So yeah, so it'll be V3 versus Jesters, and that means we'll have, I think, V3 win that 1-3-1, and then it'll be DFM beating Sengoku 3-0. So it'll be Sengoku versus V3. I think that'll be a 3-2 to Sengoku.
That's what I've said.
Yeah.
So it's literally just that quarterfinal then, really, was changing.
Yeah, that's the big one. I think largely the standings and the way they've turned up in terms of our power rankings feel pretty true to how this playoff should play out in my head.
It's played out a bit differently, like in reality, but I think some have hit more true than others, and I'm kind of sad that this is the quarterfinals we've got, because I do think that Axis could beat Rascal Jester. I think I would favor them in that matchup.
Interesting.
And I think that V3 would have a really fun series versus CG. I just think that Axis Rascal Jester is such a fun stylistic.
So I think what would be interesting is if Axis beat Jesters and CGA beat V3, I think Axis can beat CGA.
I think there is some room for that.
Which then you go,
Yeah, no, I
well,
agree, I
Axis
agree.
are now third place team.
Yeah, I think that Gadiadu is fine
There is
against...
no room.
I think Gadiadu is fine versus Aria. I think that the one question mark... And also, they don't have an aggressive top... I mean, we saw that Nap do pretty well against Ray Farky and kind of put him in the dumpster with the help of Hoglet in their tiebreaker match. I think that Nap is not normally the person to run over a lane, and I think that Eunyan will take that and run with it and go into team fights.
Exactly.
I think that if Gango and Grendel are on form, that again, that's the way I think you beat Axis right now. I think
If Gango's
you,
on form and Grendel doesn't int.
exactly, and that's why I think if you give them,
But that's
the
why if
auto-
you have Corporal in that bot lane now, it's like, well,
Yeah.
if they
Yeah.
int, we might be
and
able
this
to
is-
punish.
And this is why, like, every season it seems like pro teams just remember that Zyra Khan is a thing. And Doublelift has been talking about this. Loads of other pros. It's like, wait, Zyra Khan is
Wait,
really
washed
fucking
up
good.
boy.
I know, right? But like, there are so many teams which just say, like, man, wait, but isn't Zyra Khan a
Oh, he's
thing
so
again
good,
right
though.
now?
Yeah.
And like, I think if Gango and Grendel go back to that and can get their hands on that lane, I think that CGA are going to be really hard to beat.
Yeah, no, true. I think you're right with that.
Potentially. I mean, like, there are more Zaya counters in the game now. But
some of them just got nerfed pretty heavily.
Yeah, but that's just it. But some of them did get nerfed. Is it nerfed enough to take them out of pro play? I doubt
Ornn will
it.
still be around. Ornn will still be around. It's just like he won't be as damaging, which means that maybe Zaya gets away with like an extra 300-400 HP because the brittle procs do less damage.
We have seen specifically Sengoku run Ornn and Morgana to make all Zayas miserable because you burn the ult and then you bind him.
Yeah, it doesn't work versus Sengoku. I just don't think that many teams. Yeah, and I think that Zyra Khan's still okay versus Morgana. Like Morgana's pretty good in isolation in that TV2, but then Morgana sometimes in the mid game, like we saw versus Axis versus Sengoku, just like Enty just kind of walked into the Zyra and died.
We saw Burning Core do it as well, where Proud got super cocky, didn't buy stopwatch till like 5th item, and just died a lot.
No, I think it's gonna be a really fun playoffs either way. I think a lot of these matchups should be pretty explosive. I don't think we're gonna see too many. I hope we don't see too many 2-3-0s. I think that we're gonna see a lot.
I
of
doubt
3-1s.
it. I think it should be. I think the teams are competitive enough that we won't see that.
I think.
I don't think anyone's ups themselves into a spot where they're going to kind of get there. I think.
No, I think that V3 should be looking pretty happy at themselves.
Well, they decided this, right? So in theory, they think they have a better spot at bidding Axis than CGA. Or maybe they're just like, I think we can beat the winner of Rascal Jester CGA, and it might be hard. Like, sometimes a way of thinking about this is, I think I can beat both Rascal Jester and CGA, right? So if you're V3, you're like, I think I can beat both these guys, right? I think my hardest match is going to be Axis, right?
Yeah.
You go, instead of leaving it up to chance and having to face them off in a more high pressure environment, if you can beat them in the first stage, you already know, theory, in your head, you're like, I'm gonna win round 2. That means I'm already a third place team.
I wonder whether it's actually potentially the other way around, where they think they've gone for Axis because I think Axis are more consistent, and the thing about Axis being consistent is it's a little bit easier to read them in some ways, whereas CGA are so volatile. Like sometimes it's just like out of nowhere, Arya pulls a win out of his arse, and it's like, well, what? And like if he does that for a series, you'd be like, well, what on earth could we have done to prep for that? And it's like, well, just be better, get good. And like, what do you do with that information?
That's fair. I just think if you're gonna have to run a gauntlet, I think maybe you start out with your hardest matchup first.
I can see that. I can see the wisdom in that. I can also see the wisdom in saying, well, like
I've done it before, and it's normally worked out better than when I've started with my easier matchup, because then you're kind of beginning with baby steps.
Yeah,
it's a weird one. I think both philosophies work just as well as each other.
I think that if they're trying to hide something, this is the way to do it. If they want to hide a strategy they think works better against Axis, but they'd have to use it against one of the other teams anyway, they just go like, fuck it, let's just take the free win over Axis. And then just again in the second round they can it doesn't matter so much against their other opponents.
I don't think it's a free win.
Plus, if you're kind of nervous of the coin flip in CGA, or specifically Arya and Gango,
well, I think that Justice. I think that Justice and CJ are both T. I think that that matchup is like a coin flip. Rascal Justice and CJ can both be really coin flippy.
I think it's different now. I think Rascal Justice are playing on such nice, consistent form at the moment.
Yeah,
and as a unit, I'm kind of like, I honestly, I'm surprised, you think it's like that. Well, I'm like, I think Rascal Jesters are probably going to win 3-0 or 3-1.
Specifically, I think Hachimecha has stepped up to make them more consistent.
True.
Whereas I think the thing with specifically the if you're letting CGA effectively, if you face them, it'll be at a second match, right? So if you're basically saying, oh look, CGA are a bit of a coin flip. If you are not in for the first coin flip, you can hope for that coin flip ends up tails that time around. Otherwise, you go into match 2 and they coin flip again, and you've got a better chance of that coin landing in a helpful way for you, because if you're assuming that either match 2, either the second match of round 1 or the second match of round 2, you've got an opportunity for the coin to end up.
Just I just remember back to their week 6. Obviously, they finished off week 7 really strong, but like they had a game versus CGA where arguably they were in a losing position. That's like a 1 in 100 team fight they had.
CGA keep giving those away.
They do, and that's what. And
they've done it,
which is a problem for playoffs.
They have done, but I think in a best of 5, can you count on that happening for all 5? You know, for 3 games in a row.
I think you could.
I'm not so sure when I think that Ario will.
They have to do it twice, and then you take the third one legit.
Sure, and that's why there's a risk there, right? But then, like, you look at the Rascal Jesters versus V3 thing, right? They played a pretty similar comp. They played the Aphelos and the Azir with kind of like a somewhat tanky jungle.
The Rascal Jesters destroyed Sengoku.
They did, but they also got destroyed by
way
V3,
more than
right?
what I would say CGA beat Burning Core.
Sure, there is something to that, right? But then I think that V3 also handed Rascal Jesters asses to them in week 6, which isn't too long ago, right? That was actually a week. That was a day before week 7. So, you know, I think that still Rascal Jesters, even when they're playing similar comps, can sometimes, even though they do try and do a lot of problem solving, they do play the map really interestingly, sometimes that does backfire on them. We saw that versus DFM, right? Back when DFM were on their win streak. And I'm not convinced that they are as consistent as a team like Sengoku in a similar kind of situation, right? I think that Sengoku can play in ways like Rascal Jester do around objectives. I think that they just... Rascal Jesters sometimes lose their eye on the win condition, but sometimes they're really good at it, right? Because they had that game versus Burning Core with the Varus, when they had, you know, the crazy team fights which got themselves back into the game. They also had it with the late game versus CGA. I'm just not sure if that would last them in a best of 5 myself, which is why I know it's controversial saying CGA. I just think that if CGA come out with a good draft, we know they have the mechanical ability. We know that. They have people who are of that caliber.
My issue is that the other side of the coin is weighted by, like, not to put too fine a point, a bit of mechanical deficiency. Like, that's a bit rude. We've got 2 rookies who have had struggles at points, in Yoshi and Grendel, and they can be exploitable. You're in a playoff situation where those nerves and those exploitations are going to be so prepped for that it could be a lot more difficult. Now, I grant you that currently there's not going to be the same audience pressure. It's not going to be the same stage pressure just because the way things are with Corona. And I don't know whether this will be in person. It may well just be an online tourney. I don't know the way it is, but that might change.
Currently, it's in the studio.
It's in the studio.
It's still
be...
These ones are currently still in the studio. That has not been changed, but
and stage inevitably changes the way you play the game. There's always been teams like CS:GO's notorious for this, right? Where online tourneys, some teams are brilliant, whereas LAN tourneys, like where you're in person, can be a seriously different kettle of fish about who's good and who's not. And rookies can struggle under that pressure, whether or not there's an audience there.
Cool. I think that was a really nice discussion on the
it really was
where we're going to be going with it. I think playoffs is going to just be kind of a clusterfuck in a way, and it's going to be
that's the most fun though. It has to be.
I don't think no one's a free win. No one is a free win.
No, I think even with you could go, haha, V3 are going to smash Axis. There is also a lot of worlds where we look at it and go, wow, V3 looked kind of shit, and then you're just like. Well, Earnyang turned up and smashed Paz around and caught Paul and
had no champion peel.
Yeah, exactly. And it's just like Boogie just kind of didn't turn up or was negated, and it's
Boogie has a bad day. And what did V3 do?
Yeah, and then you're like, oh, and then Rascal Jesters have a 3-2 against CJ or CJ win, and then Axis then Axis then go to top 3. I'd be like, if Axis make top 3. Oh boy, I don't know if I can hold that in. Yeah. But it's definitely going to be interesting. I found a quick fact out that I want to kind of bring this together, as I want to kind of go on a slightly different topic to close us out, that you guys are not prepared for.
Oh no.
Love it. Not prepared for it.
Starting coaches. So, I went through teams and started going through their rosters of players when they showed up and everything. The only team that actually has 2 coaches at the moment is DFM.
Yeah.
So Kazu, who is their longtime coach and has been their coach for years at this point, right? He coached them for their first 6 games of the split.
He was on stage for them.
Yes. On Air came through for the next 5. For the next 5, obviously the Sengoku loss happened with him on stage. Then
And Axis.
against DFM versus Sengoku, where they lost.
No, Axis V3. V3 rather.
So no. So they then won again after CGA. Kazu then came back. They beat the Hawks, then lost 2v3.
Oh right. Okay, gotcha.
And then they switched back over to On Air for Axis, because I guess Axis are legit now, so they're like, fuck, get him back on. I'm interested in your thoughts on coaches' impact currently. Now, we've obviously said we think specifically for Axis, it's been super important. We think Yang has been very important for Axis to perform to this level and to have made the playoffs. And like, while Yang has been with the team for, I think, a full year at this point, and this is their second spring split, I believe. Oh no, Yang is brand new actually to Axis. Huh.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Okay. On Air
I'm thinking
was
of a
in
manager.
for the,
That's my bad.
So On Air was in for the. So he was in for the V3 loss.
That was Kazu.
That was Kazu. So I think in that game, that was one of the very few games where I thought that they'd kind of drafted themselves into a bit of a hole, a little bit. I don't think the conversation was bad. I think that Galio with an Olaf on top, like Galio jumping into like a showstopper or an Olaf with there's a lot of go in kind of potential there. But like if the game ever stalls out, that game gets very difficult. It did get stalled out. Seros played pretty bad on the Galio, and then that kind of game for me, there was a lot of kind of player deficiency in that game. I thought that Seros played very badly, in particular against Ace on the LeBlanc, got caught out a lot in the TV2. But like that draft, I was a bit suspect at myself. I think we were all a bit suspect, maybe for different reasons, but I think maybe that if that was a decision of the coach on stage, maybe that is telling. I know that LCS or NA, they actually have two coaches allowed on stage. I know that affected TSM pretty well as well. It's not happening in the LJL. Obviously, we only have one on stage. I don't know if the on-stage coach really affects much if you have a very coherent coaching team, because you should be of the similar mindset between coaches, unless you think certain coaches are better drafting certain styles. I don't know about that, actually. It's a very interesting point.
I just noticed something really weird. Which I don't think I've... No. Okay, we need to check a game. Can you lads find me the game?
Sure.
So second... So 1, 2, 3, 4. Week 5, Rascal Jesters versus Axis.
Yeah.
It's saying that Ninja and Art switched here.
They did. Yeah, Art played Lucian.
They did. Mid, he did, and Ninja
Yeah,
played
I'll
the
play
Zig
Lucian.
spot. It was alright. I mean, specifically Ninja's Zig was actually pretty good.
Did they,
the
they
issue
lost
was-
that, did they lose that game? Right.
They did
lost
lose that game.
Yeah, Art got a bit caught out in Lucian. Tried to go for
Yeah,
a
he
lot
did.
of all-ins, which didn't work so well.
Yeah, it was
had a really good go.
Yeah, Hoglet punished the Lucian going in quite a lot.
And that was the Onyan going 7-1 and 2. He just
That's right.
dumped on people in team fights. Yeah.
Yep. And it was the Zig's bot was quite good, and Ninja does play good Zigs.
He does. It's just I just completely forgot about that. I was just like, oh, Kazu, interesting win-loss on air. Like, I mean, on air. It's interesting that on air didn't come in for the first 6, and then when he did come in, gets 3 wins on top of it, gets that 9 wins in a row, and then Sengoku game happens.
I think it's easier for teams to catch up to a first place team than it is for you to maintain your win streak, though. It's going to happen at some point. It's very hard to go undefeated in a split. Very hard.
So that raises the question: how much should the LJL be facing off against other international teams on a somewhat regular basis? They have 2.
Well, Rift Rivals has been cancelled. MSI's
Well,
been delayed.
in the Magical Christmas Land, that obviously Corona isn't happening. I mean, this should be something that it just doesn't happen often enough in my eyes. I think the split.
Oh, but the international calendar is just very hard to organise. That's the
Well,
problem.
this is the problem when effectively we are running a league rather than just sort of individual tourneys, like something like
CS:GO.
To an extent, CS:GO. I mean, they do some
with
leagues as
Katowice
well.
and IEM and everything, but like,
yeah, exactly. But that's more run around like specific to Dota. Probably another quite good that front where they have like
anyone with a major kind of system.
Majors, exactly. Well, you don't get to see individual leagues match up that much. You do get more consistent content, and that's really good, and that's actually quite nice for the infrastructure of a region, which I think is strong. I mean, there has been some.
I mean, it's only hurt. Arguably, it's only hurt NA.
Well, yeah.
This system.
I mean, maybe.
EU's grown through it because they've also allowed teams to also play in other tournaments, whereas NA.
Moscow 5.
This is so this is a topic which we could go for. This might be something we should do in off season.
Yeah, potentially, actually.
Yeah, because I think that there are a lot of benefits to doing a league-like system because it does give a sense of consistency. It does mean you will buy into certain team storylines. It does mean that there is a level of commitment from teams and players, which is. I'm actually wondering if it's really bad for player welfare now, because if a team keeps winning and wins Spring Split, goes to MSI, wins Summer Split, goes to Worlds, has to do All-Stars, they get like a month off break. Of that. Yeah, maybe if that right. And it's very high tension work, right? So when your DFM has been playing all these times and whatever, just your schedule's just really hellish.
Yeah,
I mean, we heard about Wolf from SKT. He had some very bad mental side.
We did. I mean, like, so there is an argument that I know. Thorin and Monte Cristo have talked about before.
Remove Spring Split.
Well, they were saying, potentially remove or shorten Spring Split, and therefore you have more space for international, open circuit, some kind of international tournament. I wonder about that. I think I would still like. The problem is that Spring is like at the minute has limited meaning in that what it does it gets you to MSI. It no longer has any bearing on Worlds.
I wonder if I mean, arguably, you could almost say LJL is a dummy for a lot of this. You could argue that you could basically finish all of LJL in April, beginning of April. First 2 weeks of April, you could be done with all of LJL, right? How many months does that give you till the next...
play around something else, yeah.
If you cram... Because in the way, you still get the 7 weeks, you still get playoffs, you still get to see a lot of teams. Now, obviously, this is a 8-team environment instead of 12 or more teams. Obviously, something like LPL has to do their own fucking thing, because 23 teams or something like that. I know it's an odd number, which is weird.
They basically have to do 2 conferences. It's basically LPL 1 and LPL 2, which occasionally play each other. But it's a bit nuts.
Yeah, I mean, I think that Rift Rivals for NAU was kind of shit. I think for
the East it was pretty good.
I think for East it was pretty good. And actually, there are a lot now that LJL has really stepped up as competition. There are so many teams I'd love to see matchups against other regions. We're in talks with some of the other like English production guys for the
VCS,
other like emerging regions. So like your VCS stuff.
Some of the LCL guys.
I would love to see V3 play off against Gigabyte Marines. I would
that'd be so good.
VP versus Levy would be so much fun.
That'd be so huge, right? And there's so many different ways that could play out. I think that there are certain teams that would just it'd be great matchups, and we just don't have the environment to do that right now.
Sienna,
we'll talk about it. I'm going to save this content.
Oh yeah, 100%. This will definitely be a conversation we will have with emerging regions, potential like the future in which Riot and potentially other regions should be done. The benefit of a league-based system facing off against a major-based system, as those seem to be the two main.
Which regions does that benefit? And
I think there's a lot of interesting there, and that's just a snippet of content that you have to look future to from the LJL.
Waft that in your face.
Oh yeah, just gonna throw it out there, and then we're just gonna close the curtain. You can't have Grandma's pie quite yet. It's not. It's still too hot. It's still too hot, and you can have it in a moment.
I thought you said you can't have Grandma's pipe just yet. I'm like, dude, your grandma's pretty into some stuff, huh?
I mean, no. My grandma is so right-wing it hurts. No form of smoking or anything like that. No. That went in a way weirder direction than I should have taken it, but fuck it, I said it, and it's staying in like I edit any of this. Oh, I hope not. She would have understood nothing for the last, and this is where she's actually watched all the YouTube videos and everything, and I'm just like, I just slammed her at the end, and I'm gonna get a phone call from her, and she's gonna be like, Alexander, I heard you said all of this, and I'm like, the fuck you doing listening to my League of Legends garbage? What the fuck? This is my fun time. But that's a supportive grandmother. Maybe I have. Who knows? Who knows?
Anyway,
hopefully.
Maybe we'll find out if I get a phone call or not. Probably not. Obviously, this is the LJL Officially Unofficial Podcast. It is brought to you by myself, Initia1ise and Nymaera, who... No, that way, no, Initia1ise. Yeah, he's always on the end. Yes. No, yes, that's me. I'm your right, he's your left.
Okay.
I'm mirrored, so I technically got to go that way, right?
Yeah, you go that way.
Nice.
Yeah.
So this is more awkward than I'm on.
God.
Fusion dances are hard, man.
God, it's like I sent you guys a screenshot of how it's all laid out, and you still can't fucking figure out. It's
yeah,
impressive.
I'd forgotten. Is what?
Yeah,
I'm
course.
looking at
Of
too
course.
many things on Chrome. I don't know.
But anyway, this is the LJL Officially Unofficial Podcast. It is brought to you by myself, Alex, otherwise known as Lexi by MaskedSwan on the internet. I'm joined by Sam Hapgood. That's Initia1ise on Twitter and the internet. That's with a 1. Trust me.
The L was
Initial,
taken.
but like, yeah.
It's
The L is a 1.
I know it's irritating.
And Alex Hapgood, otherwise known as Nymaera or Nymaera, depending on how his mood is feeling.
Yeah.
It's even better in the GIF because you raise your eyebrow towards the end of it, and it's just like God.
I'm disowning him.
It's like
he's done.
It's like he does it, and then the eye comes up, and I'm just like, for fuck's sake! Every time I'm seeing it.
Dishonored the clan of Hapgood.
Granted, it does get better every loop. Like, and
it's great.
it's a weird way.
It's kind of a weird mix between like I know I'm being deliberately stupid, but also like yeah,
I'm fucking living the life.
Oh yeah, you're going for it. This podcast and all of the LJL Officially Unofficial is brought to you completely off of our own backs, and now part of it through our community. You might have seen something rather brand new coming out through all of this. Is maybe if you watched or listened to our last episode or this episode, you saw some new artwork coming out. And I do want to say a very kind thank you to, where is he? Penguaru. Pengaru. Thank you so much for all of this. It's honestly, it was really cool that you did all of this artwork for us.
We love you, bro. We love you.
You have seriously kicked it out of the park.
Yes, and then I asked you for a logo, and you were like, "There you go." I'm just like,
yeah, the guy's insane. We love him to bits. He's worked with the VCS, so he's worked with the VCS, so he's still my eternal enemy. But like, it's like
he's not.
It's like Starcrust production.
No. We're converting them.
The
That's
Church
it.
of Aria, it's beginning.
Church
This is
of
what the
Aria.
cult is for. I see.
That's also another person I do want to shout out. I forgot to do this at the end of our last podcast, but Ichishiki, I think is one.
Ichishiki, yeah.
Ichishiki did an amazing article over on our LJL forum, all about the Church of Aria. I will be linking this into our show notes. I will also put it as a delayed show note in our last podcast, as that's technically more time relevant, but it'll be in this one as well. Because fuck it, more content for you to consume. And he covers all the interesting stuff about that. And then if you like their writing, you can then potentially learn about more stuff in the LJL, as he is planning on doing vaguely weekly or bi-weekly articles about the LJL. So more content.
Amazing, really.
Yeah. And if you are an aspiring LJL English writer or anything like that, and you want any kind of other opinions, we are all available for that.
Oh,
We are. We very much are.
Yeah.
I'll be giving us a little bit of a, as having run afoul of a couple of Reddit's content laws. It's just the way it is. It's totally yeah, exactly. It was the way it was. It wasn't anything particularly malicious. It's just it is.
Oh, no.
I'll be trying to get out something as a kind of like a split recap and roundup as kind of like playoff primer and prep people coming into this weekend as well. So I'll try and get something out for the rest of you who've not seen the rest of this and want to get a bit of a refresher before coming into playoffs.
And it's kind of crazy, but as I said, we do all of this on our own back. We have no affiliation with Riot Games or anything to do with them. We have to make that clear, as Riot do like it if you are rather clairvoyant with that form of information. Granted, all of this has just been our own mugs, so just in case, it's all ours. And also all of this graphics, that's all ours. That's all of our own. So
made by the beautiful Pangaro, as we were saying. You can obviously catch this podcast on every form of streaming platform. I need to start doing that into my intro as well, so in case people only listen to the first
minute, they can at least go on their podcasting app. But if you've somehow gone 3 hours and now you're interested in listening to it again, you can get our audio form. It's on all major streaming platforms, excluding SoundCloud, because like fuck, I'm paying for that. Just be straight up at the moment till we get a Patreon going, which probably a little bit off. Probably a little bit off at the moment.
Maybe for summer if it's going well. Maybe.
Yeah, but we'll have to see. Yes, you can catch this podcast on all major streaming platforms. We stream every single game over on our Twitch channel, and we do post everything on our YouTube. Quick update. Everything is now on our YouTube with nice thumbnails, everything else. And this will also, obviously you might have watched this whole thing on YouTube. So hello. Hi. How you doing? We're doing pretty good. It's the end of the podcast. I'm going to pass it over to Alex and Initia1ise for any of their closing thoughts before saying goodbye.
I do come here often, and it's been good fun. We're looking forward to playoffs. Some really great stuff coming up. A lot of quite difficult matches to call in a lot of ways. We've been talking about how it's going to be pretty close, even if we have given some favourites out there. I don't think anyone's a walkover, and I would almost be happy with any of those teams standing up into the finals.
It's going to be really weird saying goodbye to a couple of these teams as they go out in playoffs, actually, because I don't know, all of these teams have had some really fun moments attached to them, and there is the side of us which has to be cold-hardened and analytical and all this kind of stuff, and kind of you just say, look, this isn't working for you, this is not working for you as a team, and all this other stuff. But it's another thing to kind of go into like these games and see one of them lose, because. But yeah, on the other side of that, we've had some great storylines. There are still so many more to come. We've disagreed a lot on the podcast here in terms of our players and our teams. It's great to have that, to show that there is so much diversity, and there is even amongst us.
And we're the experts for the English world, like.
Right, that's scary
to think. Scary to think.
Nah, we own it.
We absolutely own that shit. But if you do want to reach out to us at any point, let us know. If you want to flame us, please do that as well. It's been really fun interacting. Not even that. You can just flame us. We just like interaction. I need affirmation.
See, we ignore him, and then he pines for it more. It works beautifully.
It's an abusive casting relationship.
God, don't even joke about that. Don't even joke. Right? Yeah. No. It's been a fun podcast. My voice is like gonna die, but yay.
Thank you so much for watching. Everyone else that has come along to our Discord, Twitter, and everything else. Obviously, we gushed a fair amount, so I'm going to do this a lot quicker this time. But thank you so much for everybody for your support so far. Going to playoffs, it is pretty hype. We are quickly. I'm going to bring the shawl away. We are planning on doing at least the finals live, which is probably going to half kill all of us. But in that same sense, we think it would be super important also to get that content out as fast and efficiently as possible. So if people aren't awake at that time, especially in the West, don't blame you. We don't want to be awake either. But gotta do what you gotta do. Obviously, the rest of them we will update you if you want to know when we are going live. Twitter and Discord is where we update these on a somewhat regular basis, and we're getting better and better on it as the more we do this. That's going to end us for the 2020 LJL Spring Split regular season. It's been cracking doing this, and we can't wait for more. I have been Alex, otherwise known as Lexi. I've been joined by, of course, Sam Hatgood, otherwise known as Initia1ise and Nymaera, otherwise known as Alex Hapgood. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll be seeing you in playoffs very, very soon. Take care.